Hey, all right. We went through like a time warp there for a minute.
Yeah.
Because it's like the next day. Notice we all have different clothes on.
Yeah, it's the next day. Even got a different drink.
Yeah, we got kind of tired like doing that one show last night.
Yeah.
Well, I edited the first section of the show and it ended up being over 3 hours long.
Yeah.
And so, but we still have to get to all of our listener stories. And I still said that I was going to do more movie recommendations, Netflix ones, Tubi ones. So we'll see how much longer this goes on.
If this show isn't edited down, it's going to be like a 5-hour show.
It might be
5-hour
anyway.
Halloween special.
I'm going to try to keep this to like an hour and a half.
Nobody will watch it
like
if
this,
it's that long.
Like this section right here. Yeah, but I figured like Halloween people can watch it in sections or put it on while they're sleeping or something like that. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I didn't expect, what we had last night. I didn't expect that to go that long.
It's the
like
same
because
as
we went off on so many tangents that it's like I didn't get to.
It's the same as it's been in every one of our specials. Always.
That's true.
I'll start. Fuck, my lips will start flapping, and then like 3 hours will go by.
Yeah, I know.
You're always like, well, do I have enough material? Do I have enough material? And I'm looking at that and I'm going, yeah, it's about 8 hours of material.
Well, yeah, because I don't even get to.
Yeah. Said, yeah.
I didn't even get to most of the shit like about Halloween history and stuff like that, but I will.
We were too drunk. This shit was hilarious anyway.
It did end up pretty funny. Like I watched it back over today while I was editing it. I didn't do a lot of editing. I just mostly like slapped little pictures.
These people know about Halloween.
Stuff like
Everybody
that.
knows about Halloween.
That's true, but it's like, I just wanted something to talk about and riff on.
Yeah, there's no problem with that. Me around.
But like I said, people send in stories and I need to get to those. So apologies that it's, that it took this long to get to it. Maybe I'll put in like the description. It's like if you want to hear these stories, like skip to that.
It's a talk show, man. We're gonna be talking. We will talk during the talk show.
That's true.
Yeah.
So, again, before I get to the stories, I'm just going to break it up a little bit because remember I did, like, on the last segment, I did Shudder recommendations of horror movies. So now I'm going to do some that are on Netflix. So, again, I'm adding a caveat. It's like, don't, like, shout at me in the comments if you didn't like this movie, if you watched it on my recommendation, and then, like, you're telling me I suck and stuff like that. These are just movies I liked, okay? So
we've had that a couple times before.
Remember,
we recommended, what was it, the
was
Tenet?
Oh,
The Tenet.
yeah. Oh, maybe it was.
Somebody came back and says, that was the biggest waste of time. That's the biggest waste of time. He didn't get it.
I guess not.
He didn't get it.
But that's the thing. It's like you can't.
Too much
that's
crack.
It's like I suppose.
Yeah.
Well, I can't. It's like I will recommend movies to people if they ask me to, but it's like, or if I know what their taste is. You know what I mean? Or if they specifically say, I want a movie like XYZ, then I'll go, oh, there's this one that's like that. But a lot of times I don't really like to make recommendations just to like random people because for that very reason. Because then people will watch it and they'll blame you for whatever reason. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, that was the biggest waste of time.
Yeah.
How could the Tenet be a waste of time?
That's what I mean. That's a fucking awesome movie.
Impatient motherfucker.
There are some movies that I don't understand like how people don't like them. Yeah. Like I know people are all different and blah blah blah, but it's like there's a handful of movies that if you don't like them, there's like something wrong with you. It
was just a creepy movie.
It was, and I don't see how like.
Well,
I don't know.
With the Tenet, I guess you have to be patient.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing, and you're dealing with Roman Polanski. And you don't know what's important and what's not important, but towards that third act, all starts coming together.
Yeah.
And I guess some people just not into that kind of slow moving kind of tension and alienation, and it's kind of like that Lighthouse movie was like that we saw the other day.
Yeah.
Where it's kind of just builds up weirder and weirder. You're not really sure what's happening.
It's funny because like I was watching a couple of other horror guys that I like on YouTube because I was curious like what they all thought of it. They all loved it. They thought it was like fantastic.
Lighthouse?
And a lot of them said the same shit you said that and that I said that it made you feel like you were there and it felt like an actual old movie. A couple people did compare it to Eraserhead. Yeah. So it's getting like really good reviews. Like
I can't
a lot
believe
a lot of people really seem
thought
to
that shit would bomb.
I mean, it might financially bomb, but I feel like that's one that's like gonna be like an instant cult classic, just because it's so unique. Like you've never seen anything like that before.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Understand that movie. You have to be understanding towards it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you better have.
But like I said, if I feel like people that are aware of Robert Eggers' other movies and like what type of movie it is, and it's A24 Studios, which usually does like art house horror.
Yeah.
So I feel like most people, if they're not stupid and they
shouldn't be there.
Then
right?
they shouldn't go see it if they don't think they're gonna like be into that type of thing. If you don't like weird movies, don't go see it because it's weird.
Yeah.
But it's weird in a good way. I mean, I like weird movies. Some people don't.
Right.
Speaking of Robert Eggers, his first movie, like I said, the much beloved The Witch, is on Netflix as of now. And so that is my first recommendation. Seriously, go see that. It's not a lot like The Lighthouse, other than, being a period piece and being like in Old English and stuff like that. But kind of, similar kind of like isolationist family and witchcraft and all that kind of stuff. But it's like a really, really, really good movie. Another similar one that's on Netflix, it's not, well, I guess it is kind of similar, but it's called Apostle. And it's about, I can't remember what year it's set, but it's also a period piece, and it's like about this cult that either kidnaps this woman or like she willingly goes there and then they won't let her leave. So like her brother is going there pretending to be a cult member, like so he can rescue her. That's also very good. So check that one out. Also, you get to see someone's a big drill like into the top of someone's head in slow motion, and it's pretty disgusting. I also recently watched one. I had been seeing this one on Netflix for a long time, and it's like I was always kind of like, oh, that sounds kind of good, but then I'm like, oh, I don't know, and it's like I just was never in the mood for it. But then I saw like a couple other people like on a couple other channels like recommend it, so I decided to sit down and watch it. It was surprisingly good, and it's called Clinical, and it's about a woman who's like she's a trauma psychiatrist, and I guess she feels guilty because this one patient that she had like ends up killing herself or something like that. So she stops doing it. So she's having trauma of her own, and then like she gets this one patient who's been in a horrible accident, like his face was disfigured and stuff, and she feels bad for him. So she decides to go back into trauma psychology to help him out, and weirdness ensues. You know what I mean? You might be able to see where it's going, because I kind of saw where it was going, but it's like a really good, like, tense thriller type of movie. Also, if you like sort of game style stuff, like Saw, anything like that, Would You Rather, it was actually surprisingly enjoyable. Jeffrey Combs is in it, and he is always a delight. He plays like this horrible billionaire who has like a dinner party every so often, and people like that need money get invited, and he's like, basically, if you win the game at this dinner party, then you will get all your bills taken care of forever. Like, you'll have just like all the money that you need. And so everybody that goes, it's like all these different kind of people, and obviously the game just gets like worse and worse.
Oh,
like,
yeah, I
remember that?
That was a good one.
I liked that one a lot.
Jeffrey Combs?
Jeffrey Combs was in it. He played like
That was some weird ass shit. Okay, I'll give him the lowdown on that. He tells him, okay, for the next round, you have to stab her in the leg. Mm-hmm. That kind of stuff, you know? And they're like, well, I don't want to do that. It was, well, if you don't do that, then that means,
then you got to whip this guy. Like, you had to choose.
Right.
Because it was Would You Rather. It's like, so would you rather...
Yeah, but then there was, like, penalties of, like, if you don't do this, then we drowned you to death. Or that kind of stuff, too.
Yeah, well, they would shoot you if you tried to leave.
Yeah, that's right. They would shoot
because, like, he did originally... Like, because it starts out pretty mild.
Had Sasha Grey, porn star, in it.
Yeah, she's been in a couple movies since then.
Yeah, she was good in it.
She was in that Circle movie as well, too, I think.
They're giving them ultimatums. You either do this or that. Which one is it? And, like, it was two horrible things. Like, get your lips cut off, or we got to dunk your head underneath the water for 5 minutes.
For 2 minutes or 4 minutes.
That was a lot. It was more than
one of the challenges was what he did on one round, because it started out, like I said, pretty mild, like, the vegetarian, he's like, oh, I'll give you $5,000 if you eat all the meat on your plate. To the drunk, he's like, hey, down this whole bottle of scotch and I'll give you $50,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
But then shit start getting worse and worse. It's like, either electrocute the person next to you or electrocute yourself. You know what I mean? Either stab this woman in the leg or whip this guy in the back.
Yeah.
Then it was something like...
It's all horrible shit.
Then he started doing stuff like, you can either do what's on the card, like you in the front of you, or you can do what's on this card that you can't see.
Yeah, that's right. Like
because he wanted like a
game show,
like death. A devil you know, devil you don't know.
It's like a game show of death, and And if somebody says, "Oh fuck it, I'm out of here," they just shoot you.
They just shoot you.
Right. And the way the game is, we'll only have one survivor.
Yeah.
That's
how you win.
Yeah, that's how you win.
So, like I said, if you're really into that type of thing, because I kind of like those
it was a good one.
game
I want to see that
style.
one again, yeah.
Yeah, it was a little bit like Ready or Not, that recent one that we saw. It was a similar kind of premise, but yeah. So
Sasha Grey was in it.
I really liked that one. Yeah, she was like
she was looking good too.
She was the designated bitch.
Yeah, she was the bitch.
Well, like I said, she's kind of
she went down brave though.
She did.
From what I remember, she took the drowning test. She's like, okay, it didn't work though.
Well, yeah, I think she had the thing that said either put your head underwater for 2 minutes or 3 minutes, and then she was like, no, I'll take the card, and that said put your head underwater for 4 or 5 minutes.
Yeah, right, yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah, there was that. Also, and I know, like I said, that I talk about how much I don't really like found footage, but I should note that there are some found footage movies that I really like, and a couple of them are on this list. One of them is called Creep. Now, this is not the movie that had Franca Potente in it. This is the one with Mark Duplass. It's like a found footage one about a guy who's like a videographer, and he answers a Craigslist ad for a dude that ostensibly wants him to film a day in his life because supposedly his wife is pregnant, but he has terminal cancer and he's going to die before the baby is born. So he wants the baby to like know his dad and stuff. So this guy goes to videotape this guy, and this dude just gets weirder and weirder and weirder. And it's just like really good. It's like really, I think a lot of it was even improvised because it's basically just like two characters. But it's just like so creepy and on edge. You're not sure, like, like bad shit's going to go down, but it doesn't go exactly the way you expect. You know what I mean? They also made a sequel, which is just called Creep 2, and that is also on Netflix and is also surprisingly very good. So you should probably check both of those out. If you like kind of creepy, slow burn type of horror like I do, then you should see The Black Coat's Daughter. That's also very good. I'm not going to spoil too much about that because that's another one where it's kind of better if you don't really know too much about it, like going into it. If you like sort of siege-style horror, home invasion-style horror with a little bit of a twist, you should see Hush, which I believe was directed by Mike Flanagan. And so it's basically like an author, a deaf woman, and she's at this isolated cabin, like, writing a book, and gets attacked by, like, a stranger, but she can't hear him, you know what I mean? So there's, like, a whole new dynamic to, like, the home invasion style, but it's really, really well done. It really is suspenseful. Horror comedies, Welcome to Willits, which I think we might have talked about before, remember it's about the guy and the woman and they're kind of like crazy conspiracy nuts and like they live out, like grow pot and stuff.
Yeah, that was a good one.
And then, and he thinks everyone is aliens.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, they killer meth and stuff, wasn't it? Some kind of weird.
Yeah, it was like called Emerald Ice or whatever it was called.
Yeah, that was a good one.
I liked that one a lot.
We did a whole review on that one, I think, didn't we?
I don't think we did a whole review on it, but I think we talked about it, on another show that we had.
Yeah, the director of that film thanked us for mentioning it, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he might have.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a really good one. And that's still, I think, because we watched that one and one called Ava's Possessions at the same time, which I also really liked, but I don't think Ava's Possessions is on Netflix anymore, but Welcome to Willits is still there.
Yeah.
Also, if you like horror comedy, you got to see Tucker and Dale vs. Evil, which is still on there. It's been on there a long time. And if you haven't seen that, you got to see that, because that's another movie that I don't understand how anyone could not love that movie.
Which one?
Tucker and Dale vs. Evil.
Yeah.
It's delightful. It's a delightful, gory... It's hilarious. It's hilarious and heartfelt, and like the two characters in the middle of it are just so like charming and lovable, and like just you get to see a guy jump into a wood chipper. It's fantastic.
That was cool.
Yeah. I liked that movie a lot.
It's kind of up there with like an Evil Dead type movie.
Same
kind of tone.
But like it's like a cabin in the woods movie, but like a reversal. You know what I mean? Where those are like the good guys.
If you like that kind of tone of horror, which I prefer that. Tone most of the time.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a really fun.
I like horror movies that are gory but fun.
Yeah.
Like, I like a lot of different kinds of horror movies, but I tend to like that tone.
Yeah.
Another
one
that's... You get away with a lot of shit.
Yeah.
If there's imperfections in the movie, it doesn't matter because you're not really supposed to be taking it seriously.
Yeah, it's just supposed to be a good time.
Right, yeah.
Another one along those lines, and this is the one that we watched when Shauna and Eric were over here, was Terrifier.
I like that.
That was like it's like really low budget, and it's like really simple.
It doesn't matter though.
It's just like a scary clown that's like terrorizing these girls on Halloween night.
Yeah.
But we had a blast
Terrifier
watching
was
this
awesome.
one. We had a blast watching this one.
A lot of bang for your buck on Terrifier.
Yeah, it's super gory. I was like, it's really, really gory. But I thought it was a lot of fun. Some people didn't just thought it was stupid or whatever, but it's like, I thought it was great. I had a fucking really good time watching that movie.
A lot of horror movies are stupid. You still like them.
That's true. Like, it has to be stupid in a particular way.
Yeah, no, it had the tone of the movie was perfect.
Yeah, it didn't take itself seriously at all.
No, it's just this fucking schizo geeky fucking evil clown.
Yeah.
Doing bad shit. And you just laugh, But it was bad shit that it was doing,
Yeah. Like I said, didn't like somebody get cut in half or
it's
like
all kinds of stuff.
It was all kind of crazy shit.
All kinds of stuff. And its face and the expressions, the way it walked and shit. Yeah,
I feel like it's weird because I feel like that movie made more of like a cultural impact than because I've seen that costumes of that clown now, like Art the Clown, and that was just like a nothing budget movie, but it really kind of like
it was well done.
Yeah, and I mean in a world where Pennywise exists and there's evil clowns and shit like that, but I think I'm kind of getting over the evil clown thing, but it can still be done well. It's just like
they didn't all come out at the same time, of course.
Yeah, it's getting oversaturated like zombies.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It's just one that you can watch. It's up there kind of like the old Friday the 13th before they got super, super corny. You know what I mean? Those were good
before
too.
Jason went to space.
Yeah. I liked 1 and 2. I liked 1 and 2 a lot.
Yeah.
And what's it called? Terrifier?
Yeah.
Terrifier was kind of like that, but with a comedy twist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, it was kind of tongue in cheek in that way.
Right.
Yeah. Also, speaking of like weird, uncomfortably funny kind of movies, and I think we've mentioned this one before, Tusk.
Oh yeah.
The Kevin Smith movie.
Gotta see that one.
It's a weird fucking movie. It's fucking weird.
That movie fucking had me like, what the fuck? What am I seeing? You know what I mean?
It's definitely a what the fuck did I just watch movie when it's over.
And it's kind of chilling.
It is. It's
really,
like
really weird.
It's disturbing and sad, but it's also like fucked upedly funny.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
This dude who's not much of a man, really. He's kind of a fuck up. And he's
like a podcaster, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he meets up with this old dude who's fucking in a wheelchair, and he's fucking weird as fuck. And he starts telling... Basically, he ends up telling a story about how he got stranded on an iceberg.
Yeah.
With a single walrus. And that he and that walrus survived.
Sexy walrus.
Survived on that damn... On that thing, on that ice for how long was it?
I don't even remember. It was a long time, yeah.
It was bringing him fish and all kinds of shit.
Yeah.
And he missed that walrus.
He loved the walrus.
He had all this weird fixations with walruses. And I'm just going to leave it at that. Dude wanted his walrus back.
Walruses.
And he's just this fucking creepy old dude. Stop at nothing to getting his walrus back.
I really liked, because the thing is, it's on Netflix. Actually... Kevin Smith, he's making, it's sort of like a loose trilogy. The first movie in it is called Yoga Hosers, and that is on Netflix also, but I still haven't got around to watching that. That's one of those love it or hate it type of movies. I guess Tusk is too, but I feel like more people liked this one than liked Yoga Hosers. I think he's making a third one called Moose Jaw or something like that that's kind of supposed to be in a similar tone. But the only thing we knew about this one was our friend Jana. She basically said, watch Tusk. She didn't tell us what it was about. Yeah. She didn't, nothing. And it's like, me and her like a lot of the same movies. So I was just kind of like, okay, well, we'll watch that tonight. Like after she left, and I was just like, what the fuck? So we had no idea like where it was going or anything. All we knew was the title.
It's fucking disturbing.
Yeah.
There was some hidden meanings to it, having to do with tears of a walrus, and what I don't want to spoil it if you guys haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's messed up.
Yeah,
but like I said, it's gonna be one of those ones that it's divisive. You're either gonna love it or hate it, but you just let the weirdness.
Well, if you're into horror movies, I don't see why you wouldn't.
Just let the weirdness overwhelm you. Just let it flow.
Yeah, I would probably put it on par with something like Misery, where the villain is harmless looking at first, but they get custody of you, and they start doing things to you. You know what I mean? It's just
it's like
weird.
when you first made that comparison, I was like, what? But then, I see what you're saying.
Because you can't get away if you can't get away.
Yeah. It's
making you do something that they want to do. Kind of like it. Being a prisoner.
And a really fucked up thing.
Yeah, being a prisoner of a fucking psychopath.
Yeah. Okay, so another one that is on there, and I recommend this to pretty much everybody, especially if you really like sort of culty horror, but also this is more like a suspense thriller. This is actually one of the tensest movies that I have ever watched. It's called The Invitation. And I've seen like a lot of other people like recommend this too, and I feel like it doesn't really get all that much love. Interestingly, it's sort of like a hidden gem. And it's basically like about this guy and him and his wife divorced, like after their child died accidentally. It's been 2 years and the wife has remarried, and her and the husband had kind of like been incognito for like 2 years. And so they have this dinner party at their house and they invite him and his new girlfriend and like some of their other friends like to kind of reconnect and shit. And as the night goes on, like shit just gets creepier and creepier and creepier and weirder and weirder and weirder, and you're not really exactly sure where it's going. And also you're not exactly sure if the protagonist, who is like the ex-husband of the woman, if he's just like imagining stuff, because some stuff that he suspects or like he thinks is happening is not happening. But then like seriously, the whole time I was watching this movie, I was just like literally on the edge of my seat. You know what I mean? I was just like, the whole time. And then like the last third of the movie is it just goes fucking crazy. And then like the last scene of it, and if you know what I'm talking about if you've seen it, the last scene of it, literally my mouth fell open.
I don't think I saw it.
I don't think you did either. Yeah. I think I watched it in here like one day.
Yeah.
In my office. But it's really, really good. Like I said, it's probably more a thriller than a horror movie, I guess. But it's like a suspense type movie, like a dinner party type movie. But yeah, really, really, really good. I recommend that one to everybody. If you like kind of creature horror, like realistic type of horror, I would recommend Backcountry, which is based on a true story about a couple who go hiking in the woods, get lost, like off of the trail or whatever, and get stalked and attacked by a bear. It doesn't sound all that exciting, but it's really, really scary.
I don't think I saw that one.
It's really scary. And like the gore is incredible. Like it looks fucking real and it's really disturbing.
Grizz, huh?
Yeah.
Right.
I can't remember like where the real story took place, but it's I'm sure it's dramatized for the movie, but it's based on like a true thing that happened. Like people they wandered off the trail because the dude, of course, like thought he knew where he was going, and I was here a long time ago. I don't need a map. I don't need a compass. Blah blah blah. And they end up getting lost inevitably, and and then a bear starts coming after them. So yeah, it's a very simple, very primal premise, but it's really like super scary. Now, if you like super art house type of stuff, then you should watch The Eyes of My Mother. This is a black and white movie, but it's new, but it's a black and white movie, and it's basically like a three act like character study about this woman who's kind of a psychopath, but also kind of sympathetic as well. It's very Lynchian. It's very nightmarish, disturbing. But if you like Ingmar Bergman-esque, like I said, if you like The Lighthouse, you would probably like this as well. It's a very similar kind of tone. Also, there's a movie on there, and I see this one recommended a lot too, and I really liked it. It's called Under the Shadow. It's kind of like an Iranian take on the Babadook, if that makes any sense. Yeah, it's basically, it takes place in Iran during the 80s, during the Iran-Iraq War. And the main character is this woman she's a very modern woman, but, when the Shah is like, when the Islamic thing, all the religious crackdown and everything like that, they're making all the women wear headscarves and stuff. Revolution. Right, that's what I was trying to think of.
Revolution.
Yeah, when that starts to happen, she starts getting like more and more resentful and stuff. Like a bomb hits her building, but it doesn't explode, but it's like, so everyone's leaving, like everyone's fleeing the city. So she's stuck in this building by herself with her daughter, and they start to get haunted by what is perceivably a jinn.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like she doesn't believe in it, but it's just kind of like this. But it's like, it's one of those movies where it's like scary on its own, but much like the Babadook, you could also read it like a symbolic type of thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. But yeah, it's really, really good. Babak Anvari, I think he directed it, who's British, but he was born in Iran, or his parents are Iranian or something like that. If you like Persepolis, you would probably like this as well. It's kind of a similar vibe. Also, Asian horror, Shudder, if you haven't seen that. Not Shudder like, like the streaming service, but Shudder like a camera shutter. That's kind of a well-known one. The Autopsy of Jane Doe. Another one where you don't really need much of a cast or much of a scope of location. This basically takes place entirely in a morgue. But it goes in like weird directions that like you don't expect. Like this body comes in and they can't really figure out how she died. You know what I mean? And then like the mystery like deepens from there. But it's like really good. It's like a really nail-biting, like suspenseful movie. Another found footage one that is really good, As Above, So Below. We just watched this one the other day. It's actually takes place in the Paris catacombs, and it also has an alchemy sort of angle, which a lot of movies don't have. They should do more of that, actually. You know what I mean? Because it's like, the woman at the head of it, she's kind of like, her dad was like a famous explorer, archaeologist or something, and she's looking for the Philosopher's Stone, and they think they know where it is, and it's like supposed to be like in this secret chamber, like in the Paris catacombs or something. So she gets like a bunch of people to go down there and look for it. And so you get the whole claustrophobia thing, like the descent, but then there's like all kind of like weird, it's basically like an alchemical, kind of journey into hell and back again and shit like that. There's a lot of symbolism in that one too. So that was also very good. And the last one I'm going to recommend is, again, if you like slow burn type stuff, ghost stories, like old school type ghost stories. I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House, which is basically like a 2 or 3 layered ghost story about a girl she's like a live-in nurse, and she goes to take care of this woman who has Alzheimer's, who was like she wrote like mystery novels, like ghost stories and stuff, and now she has Alzheimer's disease. So this nurse comes to take care of her in her creepy old house, and either the house is haunted, or the nurse is a ghost and is dead the whole time, or there's just like all this really weird like shit going on, and you're not really sure what's going on. But the cool thing about this one is that I love the way they shot the house, where even if it's just somebody like sitting in a room and it's just like the back of their head or something, the way they shot it is like super, super creepy, because you're always like looking in the corners, like thinking there's gonna be creepy shit. Like it just has like a really good, like a really claustrophobic, like a dread type of thing, like infusing like the whole movie. But yeah, really, really good. Like I said, it's a very slow burn, very, it's not like jump scares, like jumping out in your face or nothing like that. But if you really like kind of old school ghost stories and like those kind of symbolic ghost stories, you'll probably be into that. All right, so later on I will do Tubi recommendations, because there's a lot of good horror movies on Tubi, a lot of shitty ones too. Yeah. There's a lot of good old ones, but I'm not really going to recommend those because we usually get around to doing retrospectives on older movies. So, I'm just doing ones from the last few years that people might not have seen. But now we are going to get to, finally, some stories that listeners sent in. I don't have a shit ton, but you know what I mean? Some people did send them. And like I said, if people sent more than one, I'm just going to read the shorter one, because I don't want this show to be like 6 hours long, because no one will listen to it. It's already going to be long enough as it is. So the first one we're going to, that I'm going to read is a true story. This was submitted by someone named Johnny Eponymous.
Okay. So
here we go. I lived in a haunted dorm at Emerson College in my freshman and sophomore years. It used to be the Charles Gate Hotel, which was built in 1901, and apparently was something of a speakeasy in the 1920s. The hotel was kind of an ad hoc creation, with floors not entirely matching up, so they were springy and you could hear if someone else was walking near you. Now, apparently there were suicides in the hotel in the early 1900s, an elevator crash in the 1930s, and since it had served as a dorm for Boston University in the 1960s, probably the site of a good many heavy bad acid trips. There were many stories of people seeing ghosts and stuff in their rooms, but most of these were easy to dismiss, and I almost always did. Until it kind of happened to me. Now, see, this was something right here that I could relate to. He says, it was a Sunday night, and I was walking to the common room to watch 120 Minutes on MTV, which is what I used to do on every Sunday night as well. I lived on the other side of the dorm, so I had a long walk. I started walking down to the common room, and I could hear someone walking just a few feet behind me. I stopped after a little bit, and the steps continued for a few seconds, and then stopped. I started walking, and after a few seconds, the steps behind me started up again, as if it was waiting for me to pass by. I stopped again, and it kept going a little bit, until it sounded like it was walking right next to me. I started, after a second, it started. After 4 or 5 times doing this, I literally began running, and when I got there, I jumped into the common room. And then he says, I'm a big guy, I don't jump. Yeah. After I crashed into the common room, I could hear the footsteps continue down the hall past the common room. No one else was in there watching the TV yet, so I settled in and started watching Matt Pinfield, who's the guy that used to host 120 Minutes, gushing over the Afghan wigs. About 10 minutes later, the girl I had a massive crush on walked in, looking seriously freaked out, and said someone's been following me up and down the hall, and jumped into my arms. A few months later, shortly before move-out week, I was sitting in the same common room, reading a pile of comics and watching Liquid Television, and there was a smell of pipe smoke, which isn't shocking, but then there was literal pipe smoke drifting in from the hall. I followed the trail and found where it was coming from, which was a little alcove that was completely empty. The smoke was just rising out of nothing. A friend who was walking by said in passing, yeah, that always happens at about 3 a.m. Ooh. 3 a.m., that's like the hour of the wolf, isn't it, according to Ingmar Bergman? That's like when all the creepy shit happens.
Yeah, well, I still think... sounds like a residual haunting.
It does, yeah, like with the footsteps and shit like that. We both
Carl Jung said they existed.
Yeah.
Carl Jung said there's a couple. Some of them are psychic projections of you.
Yeah.
Which would be kind of like a damn poltergeist.
Yeah.
He said the other ones were kind of like residual hauntings, things that were left over in the past.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember the other one that he said. I can't remember right now, but there was about 3 or 4, I think he said, different types at once.
Remember there was that theory, I don't know if it has much credence anymore nowadays, like in paranormal circles, but remember they called it like the stone tape theory, where they were like if bad shit happened in a location, it's almost like the stone or the walls could act like a recording device, and it would kind of like...
That would be a residual haunting.
That's what I'm saying. They actually made a British movie called The Stone Tape. Actually, it might have been named after that. Because
I don't think Jung thought it was that it was there as an entity. It was just echoes from the past.
Yeah.
You know, place memories.
That sounds more plausible to me than like an actual ghost that knows stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you go into that area and somehow your unconscious mind accesses it and kind of plays it back like a recorder.
Yeah. And
that your unconscious mind is actually bringing it back into existence, or a certain aspect of something, bringing it back. Just like out of The Shining, where Halloran tells burnt toast. It leaves a trace behind.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he's talking about. And evidently, Jung's red book is sitting there in Halloran's.
Ullman's
office, sitting on his front desk, which that book is about that.
Well, like I said, and I might have mentioned this on the first, the first segment of the show, but I watched a video of like a Jungian interpretation of The Shining, and they mentioned that what looked like Jung's red book was sitting in Ullman's office, like on top of the thing, and then they went on to give it was like 30-40 minute video where they went on to give like
it's on YouTube.
a Jungian interpretation of The Shining, which I thought was very interesting.
Yeah, and that like I said, I think earlier on the show that explains some of the stuff from Mammoth Mountain Poltergeist.
Yeah,
but it also links up with. Stuart Hameroff's quantum consciousness theory, which something like that.
Yeah, and that's
we won't know until our technology advances to a certain point to where we could find out. You know what I mean? Where we go after we die? Are there souls? What is a mind?
Yeah.
Where is your consciousness actually located? That kind of stuff. Because Hameroff knows a lot about the brain. And he's saying that your consciousness is not just a bunch of neurons firing and making computations. There's more to it than that.
Yeah.
It's an analog system, and it's got to have something to do with quantum. Some kind of a quantum process, quantum computation process, which is it's an analog process, and it may be happening in a different dimension too.
Yeah.
And we are thinking in terms of just 3 dimensions. 3 spatial dimensions.
Yeah, there might be all kind of shit going on, like in book, because theoretically, there's other dimensions all over the place.
Yeah, so your consciousness is probably in a higher dimension, slightly outside of space-time type of deal. And if that's the case, then that means a lot of weird stuff is going to be plausible or possible.
Yeah.
For the in other words, the consciousness could have access to things outside the normal time stream.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really interesting field of research, and I'm kind of curious to see if anything comes out of that.
That's UFO technology.
Yeah.
When you can start making your own UFOs, that's when you'll understand that kind of shit.
Yeah, that's right.
It's super high technology. We don't get it yet.
All right, so this is another true anecdote. This was sent to me by Sharon and Jerry O'Neill. Now they say, "Hi, Jenny and Tom from the northeast of Scotland."
How you doing?
Hi there. "We love watching your show and wanted to tell you about something which happened to us. Just hope it's good enough to make it onto your Halloween special."
It made it onto this Halloween special.
"We watch several nights a week, watch all the old ones too, with a shout of stick a 13 on."
With a what?
A 13.
Oh, okay.
I do that with some other channels like Shitcase Cinema and
yeah.
and Oliver Harper and stuff. I'm just like, stick on a shitcase.
Yeah.
Keep up the good work and enjoy our story, which is 100% true. "Not long after my husband and I first got together in 2007, I found out a friend of mine was terminally ill. The two of us drove the near 160 miles in my car to see my friend, which sadly turned out to be the last time I would ever see him. The trip took us from Inverness in the Highlands of Scotland to Fife, which on the map is a little bit across from Edinburgh, that sticks out like a little dog's head. The drive is a pleasant one through mountains and the type of scenery so often used in films to depict the nicer aspects of Scotland. I won't go into detail about the actual visit, suffice to say, bidding a final farewell is not a pleasant experience, but I'm glad we had the chance. We stayed from the Friday to the Sunday, and soon it was time to pack our stuff and begin the 3-hour trip back home. This might sound like a long drive, but many parts of the infamous A9 road is still single lane, despite being the main road through this part of the country, with a maximum 60-mile-per-hour speed limit imposed. It is therefore the main road used by lorries, or trucks for you Americans, for transporting goods around the country, so you are often stuck behind a slower vehicle. This didn't bother us on this occasion as we weren't in a hurry. As the time passed, I was aware we were approaching the last public toilet stop available, called Rallia, before we reached home. It was a dark and cold November night, so I took a slight detour to visit the facilities and stretch our legs. To get to the isolated toilet block, drivers need to turn off the main road, taking a small lane to the left, which drops down slightly from the height of the main road above. There are no street lights along this part, so you need your lights on full beam. Approaching the building, which has a cafe upstairs during the day with a tourist information center underneath, and a large clean toilet block around the back, I pointed out the first parking area to my boyfriend, telling him that's for lorries and tourist coaches. The car park we needed was at the front of the building, so I drove around. Having made this trip many times on my own in the past, I knew the layout well. On approaching the car park, we saw a lorry parked across several of the car spaces, but no other vehicles. We thought it was strange since the parking area for lorries was at the other end, as already described, but we didn't give it much more thought. We parked the car and got out. My boyfriend was alarmed to see just how secluded this place was. From the car park, we could see the large building, which is busy and welcoming in the daylight, but silent and dark while we stood there, adjusting our eyes to the little light available. We could hear cars on the road above, but not many, as it was getting late. Due to the high banks, however, which were covered with trees, bushes, and grass, the road couldn't be seen from the car park, and drivers going past would be oblivious to what was going on down here. After using the facilities, we walked past the lorry, assuming the driver was sleeping. We were wrong. We sat in the car with the engine running for a few minutes to get a smoke and get some heat. I initially put the headlights on, but my boyfriend told me to switch them off as the lorry was behind us, and he wanted to be able to keep an eye on our total surroundings, just to be sure. I immediately turned off the lights. A minute or so later, my boyfriend saw the lorry driver's door open, which momentarily lit up his cab. Then in an instant, it went dark again. It was light long enough, however, for my boyfriend to see the man had something in his hand. At this point, I have to confess, my uneasiness about sitting in a dark, secluded car park was turning to heavy anxiety, even though this was something I'd done many times alone in the past. But where did the driver go? He wasn't walking along the driver's side of the lorry, and there was no torchlight beam, so he obviously wasn't fixing a fault. Had he gone to the toilets? No, we would have seen him. Why was he not parked in the lorry parking area? At this point, I followed my gut instinct and said to my boyfriend, I'm going to keep the lights off, but I'm going to move the car over to the other side of the car park near the exit. We were still warming up and weren't quite ready to continue our final leg of the journey, so I quietly and slowly drove the car over to the other side, but as I stopped, I didn't put the handbrake on. Suddenly, my boyfriend shouts, "What the hell? Hit the lights now." I turned the lights on full, and we looked over to where our car had been parked only moments earlier. There, standing with a startled look on his face, was a mustached man wearing glasses and holding a tire wrench in his hand at shoulder height. Clearly, he wasn't changing a tire and hadn't noticed we had moved the car. He looked over in an instant, but before he had a chance to run at us, I hit the pedals and got us the hell out of there. We've never stopped at the Raleigh facilities since that day, and I can't believe how many times I had been there alone at night in the past, something I'll never do again. That is like a true version of like the hook hand story. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like you look out and there's like a guy that's just like about to fucking beat your fucking... Yeah. That's fucking scary, man.
Yeah, wonder what the motive was. Was he were they driving behind him?
No, they pulled into a rest area. Right, yeah. And she said it was weird because, like, that wasn't... Because, you know, like, we have the rest areas, too, where it's, like, you know, the big ones have, like, you know, the semi-trucks in one area and then, like, regular cars in the other area.
Yeah, and then hookers in the other area.
And then hookers in the other area. Yeah. She said this one's like that, too. But so this car was, like, the truck, they noticed it because it was parked in the car area instead of in the semi-truck area. Yeah. So they thought it was weird, and there was no other cars at the car park. So this... Just like in the United States... Some of these truck drivers are serial killers, I guess. Yeah. You just gotta watch out.
We pack heat over here.
It's weird because I was just reading this other woman's account. This kind of shit fascinates me, and I guess there's like a whole Reddit subreddit about this. About like close encounters, like with murders, like later you find out that someone got murdered like in the same place you were at or whatever. And I was reading one about this one woman, and she said, you know, we have this park like near our house, and she walked her baby like in it in a stroller all the time, like in broad daylight. She's like, so I was walking in there one day, and she's like, I started getting this really creepy feeling, and like I look over and I see this like really, really skeevy, sketchy, like old guy, like kind of like lurking like by the path, like in the bushes kind of. And she's like, and he's kind of looking at me, and it was kind of freaking me out. So she like took her phone out. It's like I said, it's broad daylight. She takes her phone out and starts talking to the phone like really loudly, like, "Oh, hi, honey. Yeah, I'm gonna do this. Oh, it's starting to rain. I'm gonna go." So she like turned around and like scooted like right the fuck out of there. And then a couple days later, somebody got murdered in that park.
Wow.
So
I don't know if it was that guy though.
Yeah, but it seems a little.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm just saying that's pretty creepy. But
who knows how close we come to that kind of stuff.
That's what I'm saying. That's why kind of shit fascinates me. And I guess it fascinates other people too, because there's a whole, like I said, there's a whole subreddit about that. Because remember, I can't remember what show we were talking about, but ones where, what about people that got like picked up as hitchhikers by like Ted Bundy and didn't get killed? And then like later on, you found out that was Ted Bundy that picked you up in the car. Holy shit. Yeah. I don't think I'd ever like want to go outside after that.
It's not the same for me as a guy, because, you know, I know these guys, so, you know, I'd fuck those dudes up.
Well, yeah, but it's like, you know, like I said, it's not...
There's only a couple of them that were physically imposing compared to me, you know. That big old dude. Remember that big old dude whose his mama abused
Ed Kemper?
Ed Kemper. Yeah, I wouldn't want to tangle with him. He was like, what?
He was like twice my height.
He was like, what, 6'6" or something?
Taller than that, I think. 6'7"? I thought he was like 6'9", wasn't he?
6'9", yeah, he was a monster.
Yeah, he was like a really, really tall.
Yeah, and that's really the only one that I can think of that was physically imposing in any way.
And he was like, that happened, like, that's who I was trying to think of too, Ed Kemper, because he picked up hitchhikers also, and he let a lot of them go. Right. So that's going to be like something, because you would remember that guy, like this big fucking 6 foot tall,
think about Ed
6'9" giant.
Kemper was kind of mild-mannered and real submissive, his personality.
Yeah.
When you first, like evidently when you first met him. You know, he seemed like he'd be a big pussy. Then he'd kill you.
Well, that's what I mean. It's appearances can be deceiving. Yeah. That's why you can never like, you never be like, oh, it's just some pussy or whatever like that, because then. Yeah. Because a lot of serial killers come across like that. Yeah. Until they fucking stab you in the face.
Yeah. Pogo the Clown, what's his name? Casey?
Gacy.
Gacy.
John Wayne Gacy.
Gacy, I'd fuck Gacy up. What else? Fucking old pretty boy.
Who, Ted Bundy?
Ted Bundy. I'd fuck Ted up. Trying to think of who else I'd fuck.
Well, Ted Bundy's dead. He'd probably be pretty easy to fuck him up nowadays. He's probably just ashes somewhere.
The only one that would probably fucking bother, only one that I think that would worried me a lot was Charles Yang and Leonard Lake, because they showed up with suppressed MAC-10s and full auto weapons and stuff. They had military training, and they just went straight to guns.
Yeah.
So they were a fucking threat. Huge threat. They knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
But most of them were just weasels.
Yeah.
You know, weasels. Running out, picking up hookers and strangling them. That was the main one. You know?
Yeah.
That old dickhead they had in England, him and his wife killing those tenants. That guy, he's
Fred and Rosemary West.
Yeah, they're pretty bad.
Yeah, those
that
two
was a freaky ass family.
Weirdos.
Yeah.
Weirdos.
Yeah, freaky ass family.
That was pretty freaky.
I probably wouldn't want to tangle that dude though. I'm not sure exactly how big he was.
I don't know either.
He looked like he was pretty meaty.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you know, it's just the way they are, I guess. You know.
Yeah. Like I said, you can't just... They're not all the same, like, across the board. Like, some of them are...
Yeah.
Big hulking brutes. Well, it's, you know, I just feel like your most fucked up serial killers are usually just kind of like weedy losers. Because why would you have to be a serial killer if you were actually, like...
And they kind of get you through stealth and then picking the weak. They choose weak targets, you know.
Yeah, that's true.
That other dude who was tying them boys to the board and using the damn glass. Yeah. That guy, he was a shitbird.
Yeah. Well, shit, his own like little sidekick killed him. Yeah.
Yeah. Fuck those dudes.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, fuck those dudes.
All right. So let's do another true story. This one was sent to me by Victoria Barnett. This is a true story that happened in Washington State, in an area north of Seattle that used to be thick woods and swamps before it was developed in the 1970s. My parents bought a house in the late 90s when I was 7, and when the sale was finalized, the former owner sent us a letter apologizing for the crazy next-door neighbor. More about him later. This is giving me Watcher vibes already. Yeah. The house immediately had a really creepy vibe, and I wasn't comfortable being alone there. I felt like something was watching me all the time. Things intensified when I was a teenager. I've read about other hauntings, and it seems like there's something about teenage girls that attract spirits, and especially nasty ones.
Where's the story from again?
Washington State.
Okay.
Near Seattle.
Okay.
Glass objects started shattering randomly. People felt the sensation of being watched much more intensely, including extended family coming over to visit. My aunt and cousin's house sat for us one Christmas while we were away, and they said that the house felt really creepy and they were uncomfortable the whole time.
This is already sounding like poltergeist, like Mammoth Mountain.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Doesn't sound like haunting to me.
Yeah. One of my cousins saw a full-body apparition that responded to her noticing it. It looked like a young man dressed in modern clothes. He walked by her and looked over when she asked, "Who are you?" and then walked around a corner and vanished. My aunt heard my cousin asking him and saw her get up to investigate. I would hear footsteps following me home when I'd walk home from school. I was on a deserted street and would hear someone walking and stopping when I'd stop, but there was nobody there. The house had very creaky stairs and floorboards, and one time I clearly heard someone walking upstairs and then into the kitchen where I was. I was gripping a huge steel knife that my great-grandmother owned in case there was a real person coming to get me, and I told it to fuck off when I realized it was the spirit, and it worked temporarily. My great-grandmother was a fiery Texan woman who gave zero fucks. She chased off a vacuum cleaner salesman with a shotgun when she was a little old lady.
Damn. He must have been a Kirby.
Because he used to sell.
I used to work for Electrolux.
He used to work for Electrolux and sell vacuum cleaners door to door.
Sold a shit ton of those fucking.
That'd have been really funny if like an old woman had come at you with a fucking shotgun. Get off my porch!
A Kirby salesman, you send that fucker running.
Funny.
My grandfather's on my mother's side. My grandfather's brother was named Ted Weems. Ted Weems. Wait a minute, no. Which one was Ted? Yeah, there was many different brothers. I'll remember which Weems it was.
Which Weems?
Yeah, I've been drinking. Ronnie, that's what it is. Ronnie. It was Ronnie, Ted, and Charlie. Ronnie, and Ronnie was a president of Electrolux vacuum cleaners throughout the 60s and the 70s, and became a multimillionaire, and hit the California State Lottery. And then the largest slot machine jackpot in Las Vegas.
Oh, I remember you telling me that.
In the same week. That's right. And bought a huge mansion up in California. All that shit was crooked. He was a gangster.
Yeah.
He was a gangster. They're all dead now. His friend was in the damn California gaming in one of these gaming commissions.
Yeah.
And so they were all fucking mafia.
Yeah.
And my, I guess you call him my great uncle, your grandfather's brother's your great uncle, I guess.
Yeah.
My great uncle built Electrolux, and he ran Electrolux into the ground with that fucking silver tongue of his. But I worked for it for a couple years and fucking made good money. That's a gangster ass job. I had fucking telemarketers working for me, getting in there, carpet cleaning services and shit. You know, this is after I got out of the Army. The first couple years I got out of the Army, I loved it. Matter of fact, I got an Electrolux right there. That's the vacuum cleaner I use here. It's not the same company anymore, though. It went bankrupt. It was because, and it was because Ronnie robbed that company blind through the back channels.
Yeah, well.
He built it, but then he robbed it. Yeah.
Good
all this fucking, he was a crook. He was a crook. He was cool, though.
Yeah.
He was very cool. But he lost half of his tongue and part of his jaw to cancer, and it was because all that shit he was talking.
that was karma. Like,
yeah, it was fucking karma as a motherfucker. He ended up talking like this. He ended up talking like that for the rest of his life.
Oh, man.
And then when I joined the company, everybody knew Ronnie, you know, so I rolled in there with a gangster-ass fucking reputation, you know. And, and I was champion salesman fucking in the Northeast, and my sales territory was Wellesley, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Yeah, Wellesley, Weston, Newton, and Dover, the fucking richest neighborhoods outside Boston.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where all that big money was. I put central systems in there and everything. This is before the other shit that happened, but you know, because I started to go back into, I guess you could say, I eventually drifted back into the military-industrial complex after that. I didn't really cut it. I wasn't really a good civilian.
Yeah.
Shitty knows. I wasn't really that good at that kind of stuff. I tended to kind of get in trouble as a civilian. I had to be kind of like kept under fucking, you know, military type conditions where there was something exciting to do. But no, yeah, she ran that salesman off. Huh? Well, his tongue wasn't silver enough.
I guess.
Yeah.
Well, see, that's what, because I mean, she pointed that out to say that it's like she liked having the knife.
He was that's a loser salesman. You're never supposed to talk your way into somebody's house. You always have to have them invite you in like a vampire. And that's what my other services were for, telemarketers and carpet cleaning services. And, you know, and once I was in there, then a demo would start. But the thing is, whatever I did it for the good of the customer. They always needed the product, and if they couldn't afford a new one, I had used ones. I made a lot of money on used ones. Called Bojacking. We weren't really supposed to do it, but everybody in the company did it. Taking old trade-ins and reconditioning them. And if you couldn't sell them a new one, and in the emergency, you'd always have like a couple of used ones in the backyard. And you know. But the thing is that the managers above you in this damn power structure, they wanted those because that's what they were making their money off of.
Yeah.
All those damn trade-ins. Nah, fuck it.
But yeah, so that's, I mean, but she was pointing out that her great grandma had like run the vacuum cleaner salesman off. And saying it's like, you know, she was badass, so that's why she liked like holding her knife, because she felt like she was getting like badass vibes.
Yeah.
So
and then I'm getting on fucking old Electrolux tales.
I know.
Yeah, it's gone now, but that was just another era.
So the great grandmother, it's like her son, my grandfather, the teller of the story, has some psychic abilities. I have another ancestor on my dad's side who was an exorcist and a pagan warlock. If sensitivity to the paranormal is hereditary, I certainly have the pedigree for that. I don't see ghosts with my physical eyes, but I can sense them, and they do appear to me in dreams. Now for the really creepy shit. I had been tormented late at night for a long time before this happened. I'd sense 2 male spirits, and they'd whisper constantly. I'd feel them hovering over me in bed. One night, I rolled over to ignore it, but then I felt a big finger poke my eye. It couldn't have been me because my hands were under my cheek, and I have smaller fingers with long nails, and this finger didn't have a nail that poked me. It just felt like skin. I freaked the fuck out and saged the whole house in the wee hours of the morning, which would tone it down for a bit. I had also gotten pushed over when I was getting up one morning. I felt the first push and was able to grab a bookshelf so I didn't fall, but then I got pushed again and fell a bit, causing a commotion. My mom got up. None of this was ever sleep paralysis because I was always able to get up and run to my mom's room when I got too scared. Shortly after this, I had a nightmare where a man with a horrifying half-rotted face was taunting me and laughing at me. It was angry and full of hatred, too. In a deep sleep, I felt my face contort in pure fear, and my brain screamed at me to wake up. I was able to wake myself up and didn't sleep for the rest of the night. By this point, I thought I was crazy and having all these experiences, and it seemed like nobody else was, but we just weren't telling each other what was happening. I kept it to myself like everything else. A while later, I had a sleepover with a few friends. One of my friends lived across the street and invited her boyfriend over. Ugh. I like that. So when the rest of us fell asleep, they went back to her place for some privacy. My best friend, who had been on the floor, decided to get in bed with me. She saw a half-rotten man's face on the pillow next to me, and it looked angry. She noped out of that and stayed on the floor. Understandably. I was horrified when she told me what she saw, and I told her that I'd seen it too, just in my dreams instead. She recently told her husband that story. He shocked us by saying that he had experienced something similar with a half-rotten man's face that was awful and made you feel absolute fear. He grew up pretty close to where we had lived as well. We might have had some kind of it situation happening here. Strangely, I've tried telling multiple people this story so they can make a YouTube video or whatever about it, and something always happens so the story is never read. I wonder if it tries to suppress the story somehow so it doesn't get exposed. Ooh, wouldn't it be creepy if, like, I'm reading this and then when I go back to edit it, like, the sound goes out at this point? I will wet my pants if that happens, seriously. She says, I moved out of that house and away from that neighborhood, and my depression went away immediately. I noticed that when people moved to the neighborhood, they went from being quite normal to becoming addicts, divorcing their spouse, losing their job and finances, and other awful things. Here's where the weird neighbor comes in. He's the oddest, most hateful person I've ever met. His whole family is strange and miserable. I used to be friends with his son, and he said he had never seen his father smile. I think that when he dies, whatever hateful spirit is there will absorb him and get stronger. The area is just weird and seems to sap people of the good within them. Some people get strangely obsessed with their house around there, too. My dad was one of them. The house eventually got foreclosed in the recession, and my dad squatted there for a while, refusing to leave until he was forced to. The weird neighbor was oddly obsessed with us and the house as well. Like I said, watch our situation. He didn't like it when we tried to make improvements or plant anything. I think the area is cursed or something, and that people shouldn't live there. Mm-hmm.
Bad house.
It is, yeah. It's kind of giving me a little bit of the fucking, like, the Keith Linder.
Yeah.
I read it, because that was kind of weird, too, where it's like, that was near Seattle, too, wasn't it?
If you haven't read my story with Mountain Poltergeist, you should go ahead. You should read it. There are some parallels. My situation was a little bit different. It wasn't very visual. We didn't really see any apparitions aside, like some blue haze looking stuff.
Yeah.
But that's about it. But yeah. Yeah, it's a good story.
That is a very good story. That is, like, creepy as shit. And like I said, I will freak the fuck out if the audio went out at that point during the thing. So, Tom has decided that he needs a buddy for this portion of the show.
I'm going to bring Mazinga down.
Yeah, so that's going to be like his little buddy in case he gets scared or something,
yeah,
I guess.
I had one of these when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
I got two of them now. This one had another one. And I had a dragon. I didn't have, and then I had Combattler V, which that one was never brought to the United States. I need to get a Raideen. This is,
yeah. You
guys would know him as a Shogun warrior. But in Japan, they were known as a Jumbo Mashinder.
Which is a much cooler name, in my
and they made a lot more of them. They were a lot better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like they had the other arms and everything. But I love these things.
He can shoot missiles out of his hand, can't he?
Yeah. In the Japanese version, didn't come with this. It just came with a regular hand. Oh. This was an accessory that you could buy.
Okay. The missiles are
and
cool,
they went on any robot of this brand. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But for play purposes, in the United States, they would give certain shit off as like accessories.
It was just like that Godzilla that you could shoot his fist inexplicably.
And in the Japanese version, he also had wings. He had what's called a jet scrander, which is big jet wings. But the American version didn't come with that.
Oh, well.
Yeah, they're worth a lot of money, though, now.
Yeah, he can hang out with you in the chair.
Hanging out with me.
I have a little buddy, too. See, it's like I have a little Halloween buddy in case you didn't.
Yeah, big spider.
He's a little spider. I don't even need to buy Halloween decorations because my whole office is already Halloween decorated. I just had to move the chairs, pretty much.
Yeah. I remember when I was only a little bit bigger than this.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's because these came out in '77, I think.
That's just like little Tom and his little robot buddy.
Yeah, I was only a little bit bigger than.
You're like walking down the street together.
Yeah,
on your big wheel.
This is about. I was only twice the size of this.
Yeah. Aw, he looks so cute, like laying there.
Yeah. with my son.
Yeah. All right, so our next true account comes from John Huffnagel. Now, he actually sent me this less than 24 hours after the shit actually happened, right? So here's like the setup. He says, I work audit, so I usually am up at night, and around the middle of my shift around 3 a.m. is when we do most audit papers, so my mind is always on that stuff. On my 2 days off, I'm usually killing time on my computer at night as I sleep mornings. Lately, I've been spending time with a good friend and tend to adjust my sleep a bit to daytime and back again. Over the last few weekends, I've slept at my friend's house on his couch. Last week, I had a ton of overtime and was working 2 16-hour days while sleeping at a hotel I work at to help me cover shifts. I don't know how people do that kind of shit, man. I would just be like a zombie all the time. My sleep can be hard in an odd environment that isn't my own bed. This week I kept sleeping 4 or so hours, for my time with sleep for sleep was limited. As a result, I got to the weekend with probably 16 lost hours of sleep. So my mind is a bit stretched thin and exhausted, which is a factor going forward. So I spent yesterday, Friday, October 18th, finishing up work, and instead of going home for a nap, I was oddly wide awake. So since my friend was up, I went home, grabbed some things, and headed over to hang out. I expected I would take a midday nap, but it never happened. We planned a Crussell marathon. It's in honor of you. He's like, thanks for that delightful Kurt nickname, by the way. It's now immortal and will never die.
Welcome to the Crussell sphere.
The Crussell sphere.
That's right.
You're being like absorbed into the collective.
When watching Crussell movies, okay, they naturally increase the man's testosterone level.
You don't need drugs. You don't need any of that shit.
No. No.
After it was like, I'd be curious to know what Crussell marathon, what your Crussell marathon consisted of. So let me know. Let me know in the comments.
Okay. I thought you were asking what me.
What would yours be?
Escape from New York, Escape from L.A., The Thing.
Christmas Chronicles.
Christmas Chronicles would be on there. Soldier. Bone Tomahawk.
Yeah.
Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah. All good choices.
What's the one that Dark Blue Line or no the one where he played the bad cop?
Yeah.
Blue Line or Blue something.
Dark Blue.
Dark Blue. That's what it's called.
That's
Dark Blue.
Dark Blue. Yeah.
It's not one of my favorites, but it was a pretty good one. The main ones was Escape from New York, Thing.
Yeah. So I feel like any self-respecting Crussell marathon has to have those movies involved.
Yeah.
But he was in like a shit ton of movies.
And actually, I'm gonna go ahead and put in fucking Once Upon a Time in Hollywood now.
That's right.
Because he was in that. He was good in that. Well. So I'd put that.
One of the best movies we saw this year.
Yeah, he did some voiceover and did a couple scenes in that one.
Also, I guess you could put in Death Proof.
Which one was that?
That was the Quentin Tarantino, Robert Rodriguez. Remember, it was Grindhouse. It was like 2 parts.
I didn't see that one. I don't think.
Yeah, you did.
I did.
Just remember the first half of it was like Rose McGowan with the gun leg, and then the second half was Kurt Russell. He was like a stuntman. He was like a bad guy.
I think I fell asleep during that one. I had to go back and look at that one again.
I liked that. I actually liked Death Proof.
Soldier is definitely one.
Yeah, he likes
that's a pure Crussell movie. Also, Stargate.
Oh, that's right. I forgot.
Stargate, that was a good one too. I got to get that on Blu-ray.
Yeah, I like that movie. Was it James Spader's in it? I like it.
Yeah.
Okay, so Crussell Marathon.
Yeah.
We're setting the scene.
Yeah.
After a few movies, we realized it was about 11:20 p.m. My friend was a little drunk and actually wanted to continue movies and beer, which, fair enough. I was so stretched thin that I'm amazed that I attempted another movie. For a moment, it felt possible, but 30 minutes in and I was nodding off. So we paused the movie and planned for sleep. It didn't take me long to fall asleep, I think, even though I was well beyond the point of sleep-deprived second wind. Soon after this, a truly creepy and unsettling thing happened. Now, I must tell you that I occasionally suffer from exploding head syndrome, which I had heard of, actually. For those listeners who don't know what that is, it's essentially the same thing as a hallucination, only with audio, not visual information. It has happened before in my past, but I think I didn't remember or register it much. In recent years, especially after 10 years of working 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., I tend to get tired mid-shift or at home when laying on the couch watching shows. I start to nod off, and if I actually do lose semi-consciousness, I will reawaken 2 to 30 minutes later. That might have been 20 to 30 minutes, I'm not sure.
Okay.
And hear an odd sound. EHS for me sounds like a shallow sigh or exhale with a voice-like tone. I hear this a few times a month, and it's rather scientific and normal, but it did freak me out a bit before I realized what it actually was. First, I dismissed it as happening, then when I thought deeper, I would ignore and forget it. Eventually, it happened frequently enough that I took notice, and it actually at times freaked me out a little. I feared it was a person in the room with me. I thought at times, is my work haunted? But when EHS happens at times at home, I don't want to be creeped out and think my apartment is haunted. But no, it's just my brain playing audio tricks on me when waking back up from light sleeps. I've always been a believer in various sorts, but I also have a completely scientific mind that battles logic with beliefs or faiths that lack proof or explanation. This is also spoken as someone who has lost a few loved ones. I need to believe in good things existing, but I think I've always feared bad things and sensed them the way you sense eyes on you sometimes. Or times when you're alone and suddenly switch from content to completely freaked out, like someone is in the house. The scientist in me says these feelings are just old leftover primal prey instincts to avoid being hunted. There are times I've been asleep with someone else in another room who wakes up and walks around and I sleep through it, but if I hear footsteps or simply sense someone is moving towards me, I wake up and sometimes even get scared for a second. Yes, it's just another evolutionary prey drive, but still it's almost like a sixth sense, or the brain is still taking in audio input to help survive being preyed on in sleep mode. So all that aside, I do believe in evil things, but I also believe in good things. Then when something truly eerie occurs, all you can think of is dread and the bad things, and it's hard to find comfort in those moments of fear. This somewhat reminds me of Tom being awoken as a child to the weird blooping sound like a water jug air bubble before being bombarded by flying socks and clothes by the poltergeist.
Didn't quite happen that way, though.
Yeah, well, it was similar to that.
The order was different.
Yeah. Last night, about 21 hours ago now, like I said, this from when he sent it to me, I'm sound asleep when 3 loud and fast knocks wake me up. It was rapid. If you count seconds, 1, 2, 3. It was like adding in a 1.5, so speeding up the counting by about double to count 3 times in 1 second of time. Tap, tap, tap. 10 seconds later, I was waking up slowly and was confused by what I heard. Who was knocking? By 20 seconds, I realized it was not my friend. I could hear him snoring the next room over. I started wondering if I imagined it as another EHS noise. The taps were so distinctive, they seemed loud, but apparently didn't wake up my friend, so maybe not even real sounds. By 30 seconds, I'm actively trying to rationalize if I heard knocks or not, and swiftly the fear that it was real and disembodied was starting to invade my mind. I suddenly remembered that 3 knocks is widely thought as a mocking of the Holy Trinity. Yeah, that they usually say that about like demonic possessions and stuff like that.
Yeah, and
everything
weird.
Is 3.
Yeah, what's funny is it was like that during Mammoth Mountain too. 3 scratches on the door like a claws.
Yeah.
3 drops of blood on the damn toilet paper.
Yeah,
tissue.
everything's 3. It's weird, isn't it?
It's 3, but I have a different theory of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew about the Holy Trinity when I was a kid, so if it was something from the unconscious, maybe.
Maybe that's what you was manifesting.
But I also looked at it this way. If you had 1 scratch on a door, it wouldn't mean much. If you had 2, it wouldn't mean much. But if you had 3, it would look like a claw.
Then it looks deliberate.
It looks more deliberate.
It's the least amount that looks
yeah, it's
deliberate.
like the minimum amount. 4 is kind of like overkill, so it's more efficient, I think, for the phenomenon to go, well, I'll just make 3. It's more energy efficient. It happened fast.
Yeah.
It's just trying to get a message across from Jung's unconscious, maybe. You know what I mean? I think
yeah, because like if it was just 1 scratch, you probably wouldn't even notice it.
You could blow it off.
Because
you
could
could
just
say,
it was an
what
accident
was that thing? And there's no, you can't really, it doesn't look like an entity did it.
Yeah, it doesn't look like anyone did it on purpose.
Or a being or a monster did it. But if there's 3, at least you know what it's talking about is a claw.
Yeah.
And then, for some reason, there were 3 drops of blood. Maybe because it just makes it look a little, it's the minimum amount that looks deliberate.
Yeah.
1 or 2 might be ignored.
Yeah, or interpreted as something else, or just like a natural.
But if there's 3 of them,
then it's kind of hard to explain that away, sure.
Right. If there's 4 drops on there, you don't really need the 4th one because the 3 was enough. So
because then I feel like and maybe that's like a primal thing with humans because, you know, like animals that have like, you know, that number of claws or like it just looks like that number of claws, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a big pad of
it
paw.
could also have something to do with like the triangle. A triangle has 3 angles to it or 3 sides to it. It's very strong and it's the minimum amount of angles you need to make a 3-dimensional object.
Yeah.
So it might just be something that the unconscious or it might just be kind of like the default thing that the unconscious goes to.
Yeah.
3.
Yeah.
Because it's more than 2.
There does seem to be like a lot of like superstitions about the number 3, and maybe for that very reason, like even like across the globe, like in all different cultures.
Yeah.
So I think that's maybe why.
So I don't necessarily think it has much to do with Christianity.
It might be like older.
It could be that the Christians did the exact same thing. They just kind of gravitated towards the number 3
because that was already
that is
significant,
more significant, more mutually supportive.
Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about. So
that's yeah. I think I'm gonna go with you on that one.
Yes, I think it's just kind of like the unconscious mind kind of just gravitates a lot towards the number 3.
Yeah,
because it's a good number for some reason. There's something about the human mind interprets that as deliberate.
Yeah.
But like you said, it's the minimum amount.
Yeah.
It looks like order.
Yeah.
That's
like I said, it's the least amount that looks like it was done on purpose.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that's what it is.
Yeah. But yeah, so, you know, like he was saying, there's, you know, a paranormal thing that it's like, you know, 3, that's like a mocking of the Trinity, right? Usually means the devil or demons. Apparently there were a few more superstitions I didn't remember at the time, and it had been less than a minute since being awoken, so only so much time to think. I guess once I was starting to fathom it could be something bad, I was justifiably creeped the heck out. The odd thing is that I had identified the sound as distinctively knocking on glass, but like big, heavy, thick glass, the way knocking on a glass door or window sounds like. I'm sitting on the 3rd floor of my friend's condo on a couch, my head next to a big glass window, and to my left, a big glass balcony door. In the next room was the sound of my friend snoring, so I found it hard to believe it was him. Besides, it still could have been just a hallucination, but it had been about 50 seconds since the rapid knock that awoke me, and I was still trying to rationalize it. A terrifying thought crossed my mind. What if the time is now, at this very moment of the knocking, 3 a.m.? Like I said, bad shit happens at 3 a.m.
Also 3.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Well, that's why in a lot of cultures have that, like, 3 a.m., there's, like... That's like when the veil between the living and the dead is the thinnest, just like, you know what I mean? Just like the Halloween, the Celtic thing. Yeah. So that's a very common superstition. You know, 3 a.m., witching hour, the devil's hour. Like I said, Ingmar Bergman even made a horror movie called The Hour of the Wolf, and that's what it was about, from 3 to 4 a.m. You know, what if the 3 knocks were a demon? So I was trying not to freak myself out even more. I swear I was looking around a poorly lit dark room and hoping not to see movement or eyes or shadow things. However, at that moment, the most terrifying concept was my need to know. I needed to know what time it was, just to dismiss it as silly audio hallucination again. I sit up and move forward where I had left my phone, and I checked the time. Frigging 3:01 a.m. A little over 1 minute since the 3 knocks. So, of course, it had happened at 3 o'clock in the morning. I wanted to scream. Suddenly my worst fear was realized, and I would have been better off not looking at the damn time. For the next 10 minutes, amidst the sound of muffled snoring through my friend's bedroom door, I sat in the living room petrified. About 5 minutes of utter dead silence later, I slowly lost my ability to explain it away by science. I started remembering that 3 a.m. is the witching hour, but it's not necessarily a demon thing, and I slightly recalled some other history or superstition involved. I was now reaching out for comfortable thoughts, but I was way too freaked out to focus my mind and calm myself back to sleep again. Then my friend's snoring stops. He gets up and goes to use the bathroom. Did he hear it too, and he just took him longer to get up? Was it just in my head? He later said he heard nothing at all. If it had been the door, then it would be odd since my friend's condo has a high balcony on the 3rd floor. No way someone can climb up and enter. And the outside window behind my head opens to nothing, so someone would have had to be floating to knock there. Just like in fucking Salem's Lot, man. I don't want to scare you, but maybe it was like, it was that Glick kid. Yeah. I'm suddenly reminded of the scene in Amityville Horror, I thought of that as well, in which the father keeps waking up at the same time every night. Yeah, 3:15. Also in the scary concept of demons floating outside of windows. No thank you. I don't want to see floating red Jody eyes. I saw that out the window when I was a kid one time. Oh my God, I almost peed my pants. And I don't know, I still don't know what it was. I was on the 1st floor, like I woke up and I looked out the window and there's red eyes out there.
Yeah?
Like in my window, yeah.
When was this?
When I was a kid, probably, how old was I? 8, 9, maybe?
Weird.
And I was like, and I freaked out. I like went in my parents' room. I was like, there's something outside my window. My dad went out there with his gun and everything like that. Didn't see anything. Fucking red eyes out there.
Must have been sleep.
Maybe. Yeah. And I think I had seen the Amityville Horror then, and that had really freaked me out. So it's like maybe it had something to do with that.
Weird.
But yeah. He says, all jokes aside, this was simple but incredibly unsettling due to the confirmation that it had been exactly 3 a.m. when the knocks occurred that woke me up. Whether real or imagined sound was a moot point. It was all made way too real by the bloody timing and its association to demons and the mocking of the Trinity. When my friend was up, I couldn't help but tell him because it could have kept me from sleeping again if I didn't get it out. Later, upon curious Googling, I found that this is a common occurrence, not just the knocking, but the specific 3 a.m. event or experience. Many thousands of people have experienced this, and while hearing and seeing things can be explained by sleep science, a perfect 3 a.m. wake-up call is hard to explain away. Maybe you can make EHS and 3 knocks and 3 a.m. occurrences into a show topic someday. I think that might be interesting, because exploding head syndrome is a very interesting topic.
Well, like I said, I think the whole reoccurrence of 3 over and over again in the paranormal, I think, is just because it's the most efficient.
Yeah.
That's why.
Maybe. Well, we should look into that. I want to look into, like, the superstitions behind 3 and, like, where that might have come from, because I'm really interested in that now.
It looks more on purpose.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
3.
There's something primal about 3.
Yeah. And there's, like, a lot of creepy shit around 3 a.m., and maybe that's why, like, people just, like, wake up at, that time or whatever. So he says, now I'm a bit worried, but for new reasons. I chose to share this experience because it just happened less than 24 hours ago. Like I said, he sent this to me on October 19th. So it's helping to make that unsettling feeling leave me. I'm looking at the clock now, and it's 12:45 a.m. I can't help but worry if I go to sleep now, I'll hear it again, this time alone in my own apartment. But I don't want to just stay up either. If something more occurs, I'll update you. If not, assume everything is okay. The reason for my concern has shifted from myself, though, to loved ones. You see, upon my curious research, I was reminded that 3 knocks is often associated with death omens. This is eerily similar to my family story with the drowning of my cousin and the bell that rang. I now wonder if it rang 3 times or more. The omen states that you or someone you know or love will die or has died. This is very freaky because an old childhood friend just died on Wednesday. I grew up around him since daycare, and he was one of my first friends and neighbors. I heard from my mom through her connections to my hometown, even though there's a police investigation and his name is not yet released publicly. He's a friend who drifted a bit and then lost touch. Apparently he worked forestry in Campbell River, British Columbia. About a 3-hour drive south from our hometown and 20-minute drive from where my parents live. He was not my best friend, but a friend who often joined us for fun and games. A friend whom I share many memories with. He's often lived in my memory whenever I review my nostalgic past and popped up in my fiction writing, as a lot of it is inspired by direct childhood experiences. As one of my first friends ever, I guess you could say that my old friend James has always been frozen in the history of my memories. If I manage to finish my books, then a character he inspired will remain there long after I'm gone. Granted, we would have had no idea what each other looked like as adults, or even know who the people we grew up to become. Near strangers in a weird way, I guess, but I have no doubt that if we had reconnected, it would be directly through our past memories. So this loss, while small compared to losing my father and other family in recent years, stings a fair bit nonetheless. In a weird way, I've just lost someone I once knew well and cared about. So maybe those 3 knocks are for him, albeit a bit late. He sadly died quite violently, targeted and tragically shot 6 times. My thoughts all weekend have been on him and trying to convert the somberness into peaceful memorial, thinking about the happy memories and who I knew him once to be, and keeping that person alive as I always have in my memories, even if he is now gone forever and we will never get to meet a second time. Though what I think I'm also worried about now is that someone else may die. You can't buy into superstition too much or you'll become a wreck. Even if 3 knocks wake me up and it just so happens to be exactly 3 a.m., which is freaking creepy and potentially something far worse than a death omen. I've lost enough people, though, and I don't want to lose more anytime soon. I think something evil knocking is almost preferable to another funeral. Rather than that twisted Sophie's choice, I think I will just try and ignore this for now. I just thought it would make a good story to share while the details are fresh and less than a day old. Then he is talking about how he's like, this letter got a bit long and deeply worded. If you have time to read it, feel free to shorten and paraphrase a little. I feel comfort in sharing it with you two. I thought I would say this because it's nice, but he says, I feel comfort in sharing it with you two since you feel comfortable sharing a wide variety of things with us listeners on a weekly basis. Yeah, it's because we drink and we just like, we just say stuff. Well, and plus I'm just like the kind of person that's just like, whatever. I just tell people whatever. I have no like shame.
No, well, we have a niche audience anyway.
Yeah, true.
So if you're listening, then you know what we're talking about, or at least interested in what we're talking about. If you're not listening, then fuck it. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean?
Well, if you're not listening, then you didn't even hear you say fuck it.
So we just say what's on our minds and say how we feel.
Yeah.
And if people who understand, people who can resonate with it stick.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
So that's the best way to do a show like this.
Well, yeah, that's what I think too.
There's no reason why you try to make a show to appeal to a general audience nowadays in the world of YouTube.
I just don't think there's any point to it.
There's no point now.
I don't think I could do it anyway.
Yeah.
Because
There's millions of people.
I just can't appeal to a general audience.
There's millions of people in this world, so you can go ahead and target art.
Yeah, I mean,
still lots of people.
I'm an acquired taste. I'm just saying. You know what I mean?
All right, here's my advice to you. What's his name again?
John.
John. Okay, John, here's my advice to you. Get off into this Carl Jung stuff. I'm starting to get into it myself. You can go on YouTube and just look at Carl Jung's Red Book, and then all the other books that there's guys talking about it.
Yeah.
And on that, the young guys talking about it, which I'm quite impressed with that. They're reading these books. I wouldn't mind getting these books myself and start reading them. Jung gets into alchemy, numerology, ghosts, synchronicities. He says all of those actually have to do with your unconscious. And that if you can start breaking down the barriers of your unconscious and allow that to flow into your consciousness, you'll start having weird synchronicities happen. You start having weird paranormal things happen. You can even kind of look at it in a Star Wars type aspect. A lot of the things that George Lucas talked about in those original 3 Star Wars actually came from Jung.
Yeah.
Because he got that from his professor, Joseph Campbell. And Campbell was big into Jung, and Campbell wrote his own books too. So Lucas didn't come up with that stuff. These are things that people have been experimenting with, sometimes going back thousands of years, going back to weird types of monks.
Yeah.
They're altered states of consciousness. Go off into that, man, and you'll find what you need eventually. I'm going to start going in that direction, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, Carl Jung. I want to understand what it is that he was seeing.
Yeah, and that might be like a kind of an interesting research.
Yeah, evidently Freud knew that Jung was going this way, and he had to check out.
Yeah.
But evidently Jung kind of manifested some spooky paranormal phenomenon around a meeting that he and Freud had. I think it was Freud. I had to go back and see what it was, but I think that he was talking to Freud. Freud didn't believe it, and some paranormal, some PK, RSP, recurrent spontaneous psychokinesis happened in the damn same room with Freud. And Freud, he kind of balked and ran.
Yeah.
He didn't want anything to do with that.
It was too creepy for him.
Yeah, it creeped him out. He says, "You watch what happens and something fell." And he goes, "Watch, it'll happen again," and something else fell. And we've had things fall around.
And Freud
here.
was like, "Nope."
Yeah, he's like, "Nope, you gotta go." And it had to do with the fact that he was kind of doing weird stuff with kind of like altered states of consciousness as he was falling asleep, trying to interpret dreams and interpret his visions. And he was doing kind of like what you would call, based on what these what the guys that are making the videos, what they were saying, it sounded like he was trying to kind of go through some of the stuff that people try to do when they astrally project.
Yeah. Or
to have an out-of-body experience. Going through those Indian chakras, which that was kind of something that happened to me when I had that out-of-body experience. I read about these chakras and how certain people, could induce an out-of-body experience. And I was like, well, that's kind of the way it felt when I did it spontaneously.
Yeah.
I wasn't envisioning any kind of chakras or anything, It was just a weird feeling of vibration starting at your feet, going up through your body to your head. It felt like your head was moving. The next thing you know, I was looking down. Looking down on the room.
Yeah.
So Jung was messing around with stuff like that too, kind of like remote viewing and visions. So I would read what he said. I don't know exactly because I haven't read the books yet, but just based on the videos that I've been watching the past week or so, that sounds a lot like what I experienced.
Yeah.
So I think Jung was onto something, at least maybe an aspect of it.
Yeah, like I said, that might be kind of an interesting rabbit hole to go down, sure.
Yeah, and evidently, Kubrick kind of thought the same.
Yeah, like when I was watching this video about kind of a Jungian interpretation of The Shining, I was like, a lot of that makes sense. I gotta say, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and she's seen it. She's seen it in the house. She's seen stuff fly, remotes fly off, and my mom saw damn shit being shelf pulled down and Statues of horses thrown.
On the kitchen floor, yeah.
Out on the kitchen floor. It's just...
I mean, you know, it hasn't happened a lot, but and I was going to say too, when I was reading that story about like him hearing the knocking,
I have to get bent out of shape. I
have heard the doorbell ringing in the middle of the night and there was nobody there.
I didn't hear it, but I went out and checked.
Yeah, I heard it. I was awake.
Yeah,
it wasn't like a thing where it's like I was sleeping or nothing like. Because I'd been awake for a while because sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night because I have to go to the bathroom or whatever, and then I come back to bed and can't get back to sleep. So I was laying there and I heard the doorbell, and I even thought after the doorbell went off, because it was 4 a.m.
Yeah.
4:28, I think it was.
And we're in an enclosed community. We're in a gated community.
Yeah. And it went off, and then, like, I heard it, and I was like, holy shit. And, like, I got really scared, and I was laying there, and I was like, okay, I know I heard that, but maybe I imagined it. But then about 30 seconds later, it did it again. And then I was just kind of like, that's when I woke you up, the second time. I didn't wake you up the first time.
Right.
It rang a second time, and then I woke you up because I thought someone was out there.
Yeah.
And nobody was.
Nobody was.
The garage door is open, too. Yeah, well, I was too.
Yeah.
Because I really wanted that to be my imagination.
I keep that garage door unplugged now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can't open on its own using electric power anymore.
Yeah, because I know, like, that...
I'm afraid that might happen
Well,
again.
that could have, like, an explanation, because sometimes you can get... If you have, like, the clicker thing, because we do have that.
Yeah, people can drive around.
You can drive around and, like, open people's garages,
right.
You know, if your thing is on the same
but
frequency
that was
or
late
whatever.
when that garage door opened.
Yeah, that was the middle of the night, too. I think that was, like, 3 or 4 in the morning.
And what was weird is that kind of stuff resurfaced when we were writing the book, and
we were talking about it all the time.
a lot, and I was worrying about it at the time.
Yeah.
And some of the stuff that these guys are saying that Jung said, kind of indicate that if you think about this stuff too long, and have an emotional reaction towards it, or worry about it too long, it manifests, and it has to do with that Jungian unconscious and although, like I said, that Jungian unconscious would also, Hameroff would just call that the quantum consciousness.
Yeah.
That it's kind of spread out throughout the universe too. That you can become aware of anything. Your soul.
Yeah.
You know, that's the Christian version of it. Your soul, and your soul is kind of it's like a super soul. It knows.
Super soul.
It's a godlike being. It knows more than you do.
I just thought of like a comic book cover. That's what I was
your soul is a lot older than your material body. You know what I mean? We only have the memories of this life, but your soul has memories from many lives, and it's kind of like a super ego.
Yeah.
And it's it's woven in with the fabric of the universe. It could be anywhere at any time, and can travel through time, and you know. So that's what Jung. From my understanding, that's what Jung was saying, and although he said it had different aspects of it, and anima, and what was the other one that he had? I can't remember them all. Like I said, I haven't studied Jung yet.
Yeah,
I got to get off into that.
But when you were saying about the garage door, though, the creepy thing about that is that could have been explained by somebody going by with the clicker that was on the same frequency. But when we went to check on it, the door from the laundry room into the garage also opened inward.
Yeah, that was creepy.
And it doesn't open like that.
That was creepy.
The thing about, like, you open that door, you have to, like, put something there to keep it open because it'll just close on its own.
Yeah.
But it very, very slowly opened inward.
I remember that.
Into the laundry room.
Yeah.
And that made, like, the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. Because that's not how that door works.
Yeah, that did remind me of bloast type activity.
Because I'm looking at it going, why is that door doing that?
Although the remote and all the statues, that was definitely blow stuff. But
there was no way that could have been anything else because we were all sitting there looking at it.
The thing is, what's funny is that happened so fast it didn't scare me. It's the slower shit that happens that
it didn't scare me either. I thought it was kind of neat. Well, it's like for a second, like I was just surprised. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because I was like, oh, well, okay. And then like for a second,
Jenny and Dimitri were stunned.
Yeah, they were just, and then we all just kind of like looked at each other like, did that just
Dimitri was like, Tom, do it again. I said, no. I started feeling it I started feeling myself kind of.
Yeah, like the whole atmosphere got like really weird.
I felt like I was falling backwards, and I was like, no.
It was like super creepy.
Weird.
Yeah. All right, so okay, so I'm gonna do some more movie recommendations, and then after that, I have 3 short fiction pieces, and then we will eventually wrap up.
This is going to be an 8-hour show.
This fucking really long show. It's probably going to be like 5 hours, I'm saying. Well, like I said, I wanted to get at least one of everybody's stories in.
All right.
And I wanted to do like movie recommendations.
All right.
So the movie recommendations I'm doing now these are all on Tubi. Tubi.tv, which is free. Yes, there's commercials, but there's not that many. Maybe one every half an hour or something like that. So it's really not that big a deal. So shit that is on Tubi right now that I would recommend. If you like siege-style horror and you have not seen Your Next, you need to really see that. That is on Tubi at the moment. There's also one called Triangle, which is from 2009, because there's a couple different movies that are called Triangle or The Triangle. This is the one from 2009. I think it's a British movie, and it's basically about these people, then they're like on a ship, and then it's like a shipwreck, but then they find like a cruise ship and get on it, and there's like nobody on there.
Yeah, that was a good movie.
And then, this is like a mind fuck.
It was pretty good.
It's like one of those weird, like, time distortion.
This movie reminded me of Death Ship. If you guys are old enough to remember Death Ship, that was some people found an old hulk derelict floating through the ocean, and they board it. It's like a big fucking, not a tanker, but like a cargo ship.
There's something creepy about, like, abandoned ships.
And it had a bunch of dead Jews on it from the damn Holocaust. It was an old Nazi death ship.
That's right.
And it was haunted as shit. And that kind of reminded me of that damn...
That might be on Tubi, too, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah,
maybe. Look that up.
Death Ship was spooky. I saw it as a kid. It scared the shit out of me. The cargo hold was filled with a bunch of, like I said, old rotten Jewish dudes. People in there. And imagine Auschwitz, but on a ship out in the ocean.
Yeah, and like you just stumbling across that.
That movie inspired me to do the show that we did about the fucking weird...
Like ghost ships
Ghost ships.
Yeah.
Because there are ships floating out in the ocean right now.
Yeah.
Big ones.
Think about that, you guys.
That have been derelict for
like
20 or 30 years.
They're just like drifting around. Maybe they do.
The ones that...
Don't fuck with my like...
Okay, I'm not gonna fuck with
Don't fuck with my Halloween fantasies.
Yeah.
It's creepier when you think about it like
hiccuping.
that. I know. What's your problem? Your little buddy needs to like help you out.
No. The one of the weird ones was that one of the weird ones I heard about was a big old ship that was, and I think it was something from like a Filipino ship or something, and it's been floating out there for like 25, 30 years, and it appears every now and then. Evidently, like every 7 or 8 years, somebody comes across it. It's just floating out around.
Yeah, because the ocean's a big place, y'all. So it's like
it
could just be floating around for years and years, and nobody comes across it, and then all of a sudden
it's still floating. And they say that it's just fucking infested. It's just infested with cannibalistic rats and fucking roaches and shit.
Yeah,
you would think that they'd all be dead now, that the biomass would have eaten itself, but it could just be a legend. Imagine cannibalistic rats and stuff.
Cannibalistic rat ship.
Yeah.
That the next sci-fi original movie.
Yeah, it's out there for 25 years. You get on it, and all those rats start trying to eat you.
Yeah.
It'd be awesome.
They're like, woohoo. Yeah, well, it'd be awesome for the rats. They'd be like, woohoo, all right, buffet. But yeah, so Triangle, 2009, that is on Tubi. Also, I think I've mentioned this one before, probably on another show, like in an offhand comment. It's called The Bay. It's a mockumentary. And I tend to like mockumentaries better than like straight up found footage. This is like a really, really good one. It's kind of like about a, sort of like about a plague sort of thing that happens like on this island, like over the summer. And, it's done really well. Like it's really, really creepy. So check that one out. Also, there's one on there and I had forgotten all about this movie, but it's, from back in 2003 and it's called Dead End. There's a lot of movies called that, but like I said, this is from 2003. Ray Wise is in it. It's basically, this is this kind of movie where it takes place on like a single stretch of road. It's like a family that's going, like, I don't remember where they're going, but they're going like on some road trip or something. Their car breaks down or whatever. And then like all this really weird, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, oh, we've circled back to where we were. And it's like, there's one of them dies and the body disappears. And it's like, there's all kind of like weird, like surreal shit going on, but it's like really, really, really good. It's like, I hadn't seen it for years and years. And then I saw it again on there and I was like, holy crap, I forgot like how good this movie was. So yeah, that's on there. I've mentioned this one before too. This is another mockumentary, Lake Mungo. This needs a fucking Blu-ray release and shit like that, because this is one of the scariest, like creepiest movies I've ever seen. It's so fucking creepy. I think it's 2009. I want to say somewhere around there.
It doesn't have a Blu-ray release.
If it does, it's like a really cheap Jack one.
Okay.
Like I was watching like some other channel and they were mad too because it's like they have it was just like one of those DVDs that was like under, you know how they used to do those like cheap DVDs that were just like, you know, some production company that's just like, hey, here's this cheap ass movie, and they'd sell them for like $3 or something.
Yeah,
it was
like
one of those, but it was like, but this movie is so good. It's so good, and it's like, if you legit did not know that this was a mockumentary, you would think this was a real thing. That's how good the acting is. Everybody is exactly like a real person. It's Australian, and it's basically about, you know, this girl that dies, and then like they think that her ghost is haunting them, but there's like all kind of other shit going on. And it's just really, really good. Like the way it's just this very, very subtle, like slow burn. It's super, super creepy. It's really good. And I don't know why it doesn't get more attention, but whatever. Another found footage one that's actually pretty damn good is the Poughkeepsie tapes, which is kind of like a serial killer found footage kind of angle. There's also one called Butterfly Kisses, which is kind of a little bit Blair Witchy. It's kind of like the same thing about somebody like investigating like a kind of an urban legend type of thing, and then like it's real and shit. This was actually like much better than I was expecting, so that's a good one as well. There's one called Dark Circles, which I liked because it was like, it was kind of these new parents and they just had a baby, and so they were playing on the whole sleep deprivation angle. So like you didn't know if like all this creepy shit they were saying was just because they weren't getting any sleep because the fucking baby kept waking them up, or if there was like really some supernatural shit going on. So I really liked that a lot. If you liked, because we mentioned The Tenant earlier, if you liked The Tenant, there's this movie called Occupant, which I think came out in 2008 or somewhere around there. And it reminded me very much of that. It's basically like this guy, and he inherits this really like nice apartment in Manhattan, like from his grandmother, like because she's like he's like her only living relative, and you know, and he gets it for like super cheap rent, but he has to squat in it for a while. Like there's this like legal loophole, you know, for rent control and stuff. So he's like squatting in this apartment for like a couple weeks, but he can't leave. And then like the super of the building is like really helpful, but also really sketchy. And then there's like all this really weird shit going on at the building that they don't really explain. And it's like, so you're not really sure how much of it is real. It's very like surrealistic, and I really, really dug it. I think a lot of people didn't like it because they were like, well, why did this happen? They didn't explain anything, but I liked it better that way. Like I liked that just all this weird shit happened, and they're just like, I don't know, it was just weird. You know what I mean? It's like, so it's really good. Also on there, Housebound, which was either Australian or New Zealand, more a horror comedy, but very good, about a girl that's, she's under house arrest and she can't leave, and then the house is haunted. It's her and her mom, I think. Another Australian one, The Loved Ones. You got to check that out, about kind of a crazy girl that's holding like her prom date hostage or something like that, because she has like all these weird like romantic notions or whatever. The Sacrament, which is, it's kind of like a found footage, but it's like the Jonestown Massacre, but it's like a modern retelling of it. So like if you know how the Jonestown Massacre went, you'll know how this movie goes. It's not about that, like all the names are different, but the story of it is pretty much the same as the Jonestown Massacre. What's that?
Well, speaking of The Loved Ones.
Yeah.
Remember that movie called The Loved One?
Yeah. That was from the 60s, right?
Yeah.
That's a really good one, too.
Edgar Winters? No, Edgar, what was the guy's name?
Okay, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Winters, and then...
Jonathan Winters.
Jonathan Winters. And then it's about a futuristic funeral home.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was a fucking good one, man. That was a fucking god.
That was one movie, because like I'm the horror junkie.
She knows everything. She didn't know that.
But I had never heard of that movie, and he had seen it, and he's like, "You need to see this. You would love this fucking movie." And I could not believe I had not seen that movie. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's an amazing movie. Yeah.
I can't remember exactly what year, but it's from the 60s, right? It's black and white.
Yeah, it's black and white. I think it was maybe 63, 64, something like that.
It's messed up. Like
for that. It was kind of like the Kubrick movie about the fucking nuclear war. What was it?
Oh, yeah, okay. Doctor Strangelove.
Kind of like Doctor Strangelove.
It did give me that kind of vibe.
But it's the Doctor Strangelove of funeral homes.
Yeah, it was like that.
Yeah, and a bunch of freaky-ass people that fucking run this damn funeral service.
It was almost like a proto-Tim Burton movie.
Exactly.
I bet Tim Burton was super into that movie.
Got this fuck. All these cute fucking 60s goth chicks that are morticians, that are
It's really good.
I
had
like
a great time
having
with it.
sex with the fucking guy who runs it, who's like a pseudo preacher, and it's almost kind of like a sex cult in a weird way, and guy's trying to date one of them. It was a fucking badass.
Yeah, I really liked it.
Then they hire a fucking little kid who's like a rocket scientist, and the eventual plan is to send all these dead people off into space and put them into orbit.
Yeah.
Fucking, and then they were gonna sell this as some kind of a spiritual experience.
It's like it's almost like an Ed Wood movie, but
yeah,
good, but good.
Yeah,
you know,
like
competent.
That's good, and it was kind of like a lot of social commentary.
Yeah.
On people's fucking beliefs about the afterlife and religion.
Yeah.
That you could sell them anything if you worded it.
It was
the
a
right
super
way.
weird movie for back then, but I dug it.
It's called The Loved One.
It seems like it's kind of hard to get hold of, though.
And it's an expensive Blu-ray.
It is.
It's a rare movie.
And I hardly ever hear anybody talking about it, which is probably why I'd never seen it. Because when you recommended it, because you happened to have seen it somehow.
I saw it when I was a little kid, and that was like the beginning of my goth girl fascination. I saw it back in the 70s.
Man, that's like right up my alley. So
yeah,
I'm
and all the
surprised
girls
I never saw it.
All the girls that worked at the cemetery had like these short mini dresses all in black with black veils.
Yeah.
Remember that shit?
Yeah, it was badass.
And you had to be a hot girl to work at this damn cemetery. The guy who ran it was like a fake preacher.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a funny movie.
It's good. Yeah. If you should look it up. It's not. I don't think it's on like any streaming services. I don't think.
It's creepy and funny at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it was way ahead of its time.
Well, yeah.
Way ahead of its time.
Pretty cool. The Loved One.
Yeah, The Loved One.
Yeah.
The Loved Ones is a different. That's like the Australian movie that I was mentioning.
The Loved
before.
One is what that company who owned the cemetery. What was it called? Whispering. No. The cemetery had a bunch of damn center of different areas of it. Was like a theme park.
Yeah, sort of.
One of it was called Whispering Glades.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
That's it. And it had another one, and then the Falls of Xanadu.
Yeah,
that was the other one. It's like some Greek shit, you know.
Yeah. It's good. It was
really
like
good.
It was like a dark comedy too.
Yeah.
But it was like well, like I said, really ahead of its time. So if you can find that somewhere, I don't know if it's on. Maybe it's on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, it had all these fucking cute Lily Munster looking, not Lily Munster, more like Morticia Adams looking 60s girls fucking running this damn cemetery with this kind of pervy old fucking and. Jonathan Winters played like 6 roles in it, didn't he?
That's right. Yeah, he was in he played a bunch of different parts.
Priest, or he wasn't really a priest. He was just a cemetery owner.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he played 4 or 5 different guys in there.
Yeah, I really.
It was fucking great. Yeah.
It's a great movie. It really is. Okay, so let me see. Where was I? Okay, so Tubi recommendations. Oh, they just put this one up the other day, and I'd been wanting to see this one for a while. This is called Banshee Chapter. Yeah. Now, this one is kind of like. If you're into like MK Ultra, like conspiracy theory type stuff, or there's a guy like Ted Levine who, it puts the lotion on its skin or else it gets the hose again, from Silence of the Lambs. He is in this playing like a Hunter S. Thompson character. Yeah, he's essentially Hunter S. Thompson, except he's named something else. So it's basically about this drug. It's kind of like a DMT variant. And when you take it, I guess there's like a thing where MK Ultra was experimenting with this particular kind of drug, DMT-19, I think it's called in the movie. And when you drink it, it not only causes you like to hallucinate and freak out and shit like that, but also it seems to like make something come and get you.
Okay, yeah.
So it's almost kind of like MK Ultra crossed with H.P. Lovecraft's From Beyond.
That's cool.
It's very good.
What's the name of the movie again?
Banshee Chapter.
Okay.
I really liked it a lot. It's weird because it's almost like he couldn't decide whether he wanted to make a regular movie or like found footage, because some of it is like footage because it's this woman she's investigating the disappearance of her best friend who was experimenting with this drug, like to see what it would do, because he was writing a research paper on it, and then he disappears and there's like a weird video of him taking the drug, and then like it freaks out and there's like all kind of weird shit happening. So she hooks up with this Hunter S. Thompson character, to try, because he was the one that sent him the drug, and they're trying to like figure out what's going on. So yeah, so there's a very From Beyond type of vibe to it, and a very like MK Ultra, like government experiment, conspiracy theory in the desert type of shit. So if you're into that kind of thing, I really liked it a lot, and I just watched that one the other day. Another really good one that's on there, and this was on Netflix for a while, but I don't think it's on there anymore, but it's now on Tubi for free. And I also recommend this one to everyone. They Look Like People. This is not a straight up horror movie. It's more like a psychological, I guess it's like a psychological thriller. It does have horror elements. Like, it has like super creepy like imagery and stuff, but it's basically about a guy who has schizophrenia, and he thinks that people are demons and that he has to kill them. Like, that certain people are demons. So it's kind of like the story of like him and his best friend, and how he's trying to like navigate this like mental illness that he has. And it's like, this is one, it's not only one of the creepiest movies I've ever seen. Two, it's probably one of the best depictions of mental illness I've ever seen on screen, because the guy is like really sympathetic. He knows that he has schizophrenia, but he can't discern like reality from fantasy, but he knows that he can't, and it's very disturbing to him. So he's very sympathetic. And the ending of it, like the friendship between the two guys, like they established it so well. Like the ending of it is super, super, it was like touching. You know what I mean? And it's weird to say about like a horror movie, but the end of that, I was just like legit. I was like, oh my God, that was beautiful. It was a beautiful, beautiful ending. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm not going to spoil it, but it's like, I really, really liked the ending of it. It was just like perfect. So that's a really good one. They Look Like People. Now, this is one that had been recommended to me a bunch of times. This is kind of like a horror movie. It's more like a dark comedy, but it has like a lot of gore. It's called Excision. And it's about this girl who has some serious psychological problems. So it's kind of like going into her kind of daily life, but it's also into her fantasy life. She kind of has like a weird like necrophilia fetish. She has like all this weird. So there's all this like really beautiful but grotesque like imagery of like all of her inner thoughts, which are super fucked up. Yeah. And then like her real life as well. And this movie is from a spot the cameo kind of standpoint. Fantastic. There's all kind of like great cameos in this. I don't want to spoil all of them. I will say one, John Waters. Now, Tracy Lords has a major part in this. Tracy Lords plays the girl's mom.
Damn, she was a hottie.
Yeah. So, I know. So there's a bunch of other ones too in this, but this is really good. Like I said, not exactly a horror movie. It's more like a black comedy, but it's really, really gory. The same director, his second movie was called Suburban Gothic, which is on Tubi. It's also on Shudder. So if you don't have Shudder, you can watch it for free on Tubi. That was more a straight comedy, but it had paranormal elements to it. Like, it was a guy that could see dead people, and like, you know, he was trying to like figure out what was that. That also had Ray Wise in it, who was in Twin Peaks, in case most people didn't know. But yeah, so that was more a comedy. So I didn't like it quite as much as Excision, but it was still like hilarious. Another one I'm going to recommend is Absentia, which I think was Mike Flanagan's, might have been his first movie. Just kind of like a creepy, surreal type of thing. Again, if you like art flicks, remember I mentioned Eyes of My Mother before. If you liked that one, and if you like The Lighthouse, then you should watch A Field in England. This is a weird fucking movie. This is also black and white, and it's basically like four guys who are like deserting from a battle, and one of them is like an alchemist, and then like this other guy comes and he's like looking for him.
An alchemist? What year are we talking about?
Yeah, it's like 16th century or 17th century, something like that. Yeah, it's like set a long time ago. And I think, and there's some debate over whether all the shit that happened in the movie actually happened, or if it was like some kind of weird like alchemical, like a magical ritual type of thing. Like, I mean, like it could have been interpreted that way too. Like a lot, if you know a lot about alchemy and shit, then you will be orgasmic at this movie, because it's just like, it just like goes along that whole kind of thing, like this whole journey that this dude is on. It's like super trippy. Not a lot of people will be able to put up with it because it's very, very arty-farty, but it's funny too. Like, it reminded me of The Lighthouse in a way. Similar kind of vibe.
When arty-farty shit goes down, she starts getting uncomfortable around me because she thinks I'm not going to like it.
Well, yeah, well, I have to say, it's always kind of like stressful for me, like not so much like at home, like because I can just like watch shit in my office by myself.
Watching this shit
but if we're in a movie theater,
yeah,
like I can't tell like if he likes shit or not, because he's always because whether he likes a movie or not, I can't ever tell. Yeah. Because his tastes are very weird and like idiosyncratic. But it's like, whatever movie it is, I see him sitting over there, and whatever movie it is, it doesn't matter if he likes it or not, he always does stuff like... He's always doing that kind of stuff, and I can always see that out of the corner of my eye. I'm like, is he just doing that because he's breathing, or is he doing that because he's mad? So I'm always like, so it kind of takes me out of the movie a little bit, because I'm like worried about like what is his problem over there? It's like he might just be doing that just for no reason.
Well, no, I'm just reacting to it.
Because sometimes he's done that, and I thought, oh my God, he's hating this shit, and then I get stressed out. But then later he's like, oh man, that was awesome. You know what I mean? So I'm like, well, what was that all about? You know what I mean? I was like, maybe he's just breathing. I don't know.
No, it was just, that's how I was reacting to it. It's like, oh.
Yeah, because sometimes you're like, oh man, like you're into the movie. Sometimes I can't tell that from like, oh, fuck this movie. I can't tell.
So it could be either. It depends.
That's what I mean. I can't tell the difference between those two reactions. So a lot of times, if we see something, especially if it's something that I really wanted to see, like I was very nervous about going to see The Lighthouse, because I knew I was probably going to dig it, because I had seen The Witch and I was really into it.
I had to stew on that one for a while.
You didn't see The Witch, and I figured, because I knew it was going to be arty farty.
Yeah.
Because that's just what that guy does. And so I was like, man, I really want to see this, and I hope he doesn't like complain about it the whole time, or like complain about it in the car the whole time. But it's like, but then like when I was watching the movie, I got so into it I didn't give a shit anymore, because I was just like, because I got like so sucked into the movie, so I wasn't really worried about what you were.
No, I appreciated the movie. I liked the movie.
And then I heard you laughing at it a couple times, so I was like, well, that's good, because he laughed at like funny parts and stuff. So.
Yeah. No, I liked the movie.
I did too.
I liked the movie, but I didn't. I was like,
I like it more the more I think about it, actually.
The movie was supposed to fuck you over.
Mm-hmm.
All right, it was trying to. See, and which I know that the movie's trying to do that. So I'm kind of in a personal struggle with the movie. You know what I'm talking about?
He's in a personal struggle with the movie.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
You're not really involved in that shit. I'm just looking at that movie. I'm kind of like mentally, spiritually kind of like struggling with it. I want to talk about it until I've fucking totally digested it.
Yeah. That's definitely one that needs to be digested.
And I'm trying to psychoanalyze the dudes that made it.
Yeah.
And why they were trying to fuck me over like that. and then I start critiquing, well, how good was that fuck over? And did I fucking actually counter fuck over that movie? You know what I mean? Like to go through the fucking...
You've given this a great deal of thought.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Afterwards I started back and they said they achieved what they tried to do.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give them props for it.
Okay, well, that's good. I saw like a snippet of an interview today with Robert Eggers, and he said the best fucking thing about this movie. He said, and I'm paraphrasing, but this is pretty much what he said. He said,
we're talking about the lighthouse.
He said, nothing good ever comes from two men being trapped in a giant phallic symbol.
Yeah. Well,
I thought was very funny.
I could relate to it personally, being on a desert island during military mission on OP-311, also known as The Rock.
Yeah.
Look it up, MFO mission, Egypt. Look it up on YouTube. But there was like 6 to 8 of us depending up there. So I understand that situation.
Yeah. Okay. And like I said, and I've seen a couple...
Now, our situation was not that dire.
Well, that was in a very extreme situation.
That was an extreme situation.
You could see how people would go nuts. It was an
extreme situation, so I could put myself in those shoes.
Yeah.
When on The Rock, we actually fucking partied.
Yeah.
We loved it.
Yeah. Well, they did too, just in a horrible, horrible way.
Listening to The Cure up there and fucking doing our jobs and enforcing the embargo against fucking Iraq at that time. Because Saddam was still alive at that time. So we were having fun up there.
Yeah.
Doing helicopter missions and shit.
The two dudes in the lighthouse were not having fun. Not at all.
Running generators and burning shit. Because we didn't have a sewage system. We just had that damn outhouse. So we'd have to pour diesel fuel in the shit and just fucking burn it. Yeah. That's shit that young guys like to do.
Yeah.
Burn the shit. Okay, I'm going to burn the shit. Hold on.
But yeah, I was reading another review of The Lighthouse, and somebody like kind of pegged it. They said, and they gave like the movie a very glowing review, but they're like, this is like, what would it like the worst like roommate situation ever? Oh. Like it's a horror movie about like having the worst roommate ever.
I must say, you know those Egyptian ibises?
Yeah.
I saved like 5 of them.
Did you?
Yeah, because around OP-311 is a bunch of concertina wire. It's wrapped up fucking like barbed wire. And you'd have to walk that fucking wire once a day, and you'd find fucking birds, those ibises.
Yeah.
Fucking trapped.
Well, they'd be stuck in there, sure.
Yeah, because the wind velocity was high as it would go up the mountain, and they were just trying to soar up through the thermals and go through the wind currents and shit, and they'd run into that concertina. I must have pulled 4 or 5 of them things out of there during the time.
Babies.
Yeah, you pull them out of there, and I'd take them down into the main bunker, into the little machine gun bunker that we had, let them recover and feed them and everything. And they were like thankful.
Well, yeah, they're not dumb. Birds are smart.
Yeah, they'd be, you go up there and you get them out of there. Their fucking wings would be all cut up from being caught in the fucking.
I mean, they understand. I think they understand, like, people trying to help them.
Yeah, I fucking would get them. Other guys would do it too. But I guess we got about 5 of them. I guess I got 2 personally.
Yeah.
Pulled them out of the wire. And you'd like curl them up like a chicken. You know, about, like fold them up their wings, and fucking pet them. Take them out, let them recover, and just put them on the ground. It'd be about 4 hours before they'd recover. And then they'd walk outside the bunker and spread their wings and let the wind carry them away,
Yeah.
And you could tell they were fucking looking down at the camp.
Like, thanks, man.
Thanks, man. And they take off.
Aw,
cool times. Cool times. Give them some sardines.
Oh, I bet they really liked that.
Yeah,
that's probably their favorite thing.
Yeah.
Nice and stinky.
Give them some stinky ass sardines.
All right, so the last movie that I'm going to recommend on Tubi, and like I said, they have a humongous horror selection. I haven't even looked at like some of their other topics because they have like the fucking documentaries, they have everything. But a lot of them I had to kind of wade through. There's a lot of good old ones on there, like I said too, but I'm not going to like recommend those because you guys know. But I'm just trying to do ones that aren't that old. Now the last one I'm going to recommend is called The Children, and it's from 2009. This is also a British movie. I actually heard about this one from Top 5 Scary Videos. That guy, he's a British guy, Jack Finch, and he does like a series where it's like, top 5 like underrated horror movies or horror movies you haven't seen or something like that. And he's done like 8 or 9 of those. So I write down, like, some of them I've seen, but like some of them I wrote down, and this was one of the ones that he recommended, and I found it on Tubi, and it's really, really good. It's just kind of like, it reminded me slightly, I want to say The Brood, but not quite. It's kind of like a thing where like all the kids turn evil for whatever reason, and then start killing the adults and stuff. And it's kind of set at Christmas time and stuff like that, but I really, really liked it. So go check that one out as well. It's from 2009. All right, so before we wrap up this very long show, holy crap, I'm so glad that we decided to record this.
This is a marathon show.
Record this over 2 nights because it's like I'm getting really...
We're just going to put this on and have a whole Halloween festival.
That's what I mean.
Cooking,
it's like, holy shit, man.
Kids and all kinds of
this
shit.
Is going to be, seriously, when I edit this together, it's going to be almost 6 hours long.
It's fucking ridiculous. This is a
We're
Halloween
ridiculous. I didn't mean for it to be this long. I just meant for it to be maybe 3 hours. But you know how we go. It's like just kind of like we start drinking, he starts talking, we just kind of like.
She's gonna blame it on me.
Well, I said, well, no, I'm not blaming it on you. I'm just saying, like, shit happens.
Come here, Majenga.
Oh.
Mazenga's kind of okay.
You guys hang out.
That's
together.
the great Mazenga.
Yeah.
Oh, you motherfucker's brave as shit.
Not like the mediocre Mazenga.
Not like the mediocre Mazenga. There's another one.
That's a totally different
There was another Mazenga that came before, but this one is great Mazenga.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, we got like really into that. You were really into that for a while, and we were like watching the cartoon and shit like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good superheroes.
You grew up watching those.
Yeah, I grew up watching them.
But it's like there's like a little person in there, right? It's kind of like Pacific Rim type of shit.
Well, there were 2 of them. There's Koji Kabuto, and I forgot the other guy's name. It's a long story. They were in the damn UFO in a secret institute making fucking secret technology. And then Grendizer came down, and that was kind of like the Japanese Superman.
Yeah.
And I forgot what his name was. I mean, I'm fucking drunk right now, but he had an alien super robot called Grendizer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they were saving the planet.
Like you do.
Yeah. Everything that was superhero in Japan, you had the hero, and he had a giant robot.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Because that's clearly the way to go.
They even bought Spider-Man and gave him a giant robot.
Because everybody has to have a giant robot.
That's right. They even bought...
That's just how it works.
They bought the license for Superman and gave
so
him
he could have a giant robot.
What
did Superman's giant robot look like? Did it look like Superman, or did it look just like not related?
A company called Bullmark made the damn die-cast figure. I bought it when I was a kid. I forgot what it was called. Shit. It was silver with red.
Oh, okay.
And it just looked like a damn robot.
I could probably Google it and find like an image.
Superman's mecha.
So now I'm kind of like curious. Yeah. Like I feel like Superman probably.
Off. It looked pissed off. It looked kind of like Pharaoh.
Okay. All right. I feel like Superman wouldn't need a mecha, but if you have the opportunity to be given one, you'd be like, why not?
Yeah.
Why not? It's a giant robot.
Giant robot looked like Pharaoh in a way.
Okay.
But it had the lines. But actually, no. You know what Superman's giant robot looked like?
What's that?
It looked more like fucking. It looked like more like fucking. What's this name? Damn. It looked basically kind of Greek.
Okay.
Okay. It had a face and it had 4 little fucking things that went back, and it had big arms that kind of bowled out, 3 spikes on the back of the arms and big fists, and it was just dumb.
It was just dumb.
Yeah, it was just dumb. It looked kind of like something from ancient Persia.
Okay. Well, I don't know. That sounds pretty badass, I think. Like,
yeah.
That doesn't sound dumb at all.
Yeah, I forgot what it was called.
All right.
Superman had a back.
So we're really trying not to go off any tangents, but you know how that works.
Yeah.
So before we end this like fucking marathon of a show, I wanted to read 3 fiction pieces that were submitted. And like I said, some of you guys like sent me 2, but like I said, I picked the shorter one because, like I said, the show is like, I did not expect the show to go on this long, so I was going to read.
Spider-Man's mecha was called Leopoldion was its name. Leopoldion.
Fair enough.
It looked stupid.
It looks stupid?
Yeah, it was a bunch of squares and a fucking weird looking beak and it fucking had spider web looking pattern on it. Leopoldion.
Okay, I'm gonna have
Some people loved it. They made a big...
Remind me, I'm gonna look that up later.
They made a big one like this of Leopoldion, too. They made them different sizes. Leopoldion.
Spider-Man's mecha.
Yeah.
That's the direction that I didn't think this show was going to go in.
Leopoldion, yeah.
Interesting.
But I forgot Superman's one. I forgot the name of it.
So, like, every American superhero had their own giant robot?
No.
Or
from what I remember...
just the good ones?
From what I remember back in the 70s...
Did Wonder Woman have one?
No. They only bought the license to Spider-Man and Superman, from what I remember. They may have bought like some of the other ones, but I don't remember. I don't think they had mechas and shit. But the thing is, a Japanese kid would be like, "What? It's a dude in leotards? What kind of stupid shit is that? Where's this robot?" So you know what I'm talking about?
What? It's just a guy with
just a
tights?
Dude with fucking tights. What the fuck is that?
And a cape?
Yeah, they understood. They understood that shit.
That's dumb.
Yeah, they said it's just dumb as fuck, man. Where's this robot?
Where's this giant robot?
Yeah, right.
It's a legitimate question.
It makes a lot of sense. But really, when it came to fucking writing, the best one was fucking UFO Grandizer.
Yeah.
Yeah, UFO Grandizer. That was actually.
Now, what's the one? See, I like Getter Robo because
the Getter Robo was good
because
too.
The theme song is the best.
I was a big fan of Getter Robo G.
Yeah.
Right. But I would still probably put UFO Grandizer above all that, and that was like was kind of like the Japanese version of Superman. Okay, and the writer was really good. He wrote the same writer wrote Get a Robo G.
Yeah.
Forgot his name.
I like that one just because, like I said, I like the theme song.
Yeah.
They're all kind of similar, but
they're all kind of similar.
And it was the same guy like sang a lot of them too.
Yeah. The fucking theme songs were fucking epic.
They really were.
They were fucking epic.
Well, it was like an Orion type guy where he would come out like in a cape and stuff, and he would like sing all the. I can't remember what his name was now, but I used to have like a mix. Remember we used to listen to that mix in the car sometimes.
Yeah, that fucking shit was awesome.
And then we'd be like.
It's kind of like having Wayne Newton come out and fucking sing.
Yeah, that's what it was like. It was exactly like that.
Yeah, like a heroic fucking Wayne Newton.
But it was awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah. And he was singing about songs of heroism and shit.
About giant robots. And aliens who had giant robots. Sure. And that's what UFO Grandizer was about. Yeah.
Yeah. He had Duke Fleed was his name.
That's right.
Duke Fleed was kind of like the Japanese Superman. He came from another planet.
Yeah.
And he arrived here to protect Japan against evil white people. Nah, just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding. He's protecting Japan. He's protecting Japan against the vegans, the vegan empires. You know,
the vegan empire.
They were called the vegans. The vegans. They were aliens. They were aliens.
They're from another planet where they only ate plants.
Yeah, actually, it was called vegan, but it was before the word vegan.
Vegan was a thing.
Things. Yeah, they were the vegans.
So it wasn't. Yeah, it
kind
was
of like
just,
the vegans or the vegans.
It was just a word.
They were aliens.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was protecting the Earth from these fucking aliens.
That's hilarious.
That had destroyed his home planet. Okay.
Okay.
They destroyed his home planet. And he ran to Earth because.
So like Superman.
Like Superman. He ran to Earth because he looked like a human. And he helped Koji Kabuto and some other guys in a big scientific institute to fucking increase their technology to fight the vegans. And he came with Grandizer, who was this fucking... I'll show you Grandizer. I got Grandizer. All right.
You scared baby Cookie. Okay, here he is. He's getting them from my shelf.
That's the UFO Grandizer.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. And it's a robot inside of a UFO that flies.
Yeah.
And Grandizer...
well, he's kind of like... It's a transformer, right? Like
he comes out of there. And then he will come out of there. It's just I don't want to do that right now. He would pilot that thing, and Grandizer was fucking defending the Earth against the vegans. Now, here's the thing.
Defending the Earth against the vegans. That's just like... That's cracking.
Here's the thing, though. Duke Flea didn't build this. He stole it from the vegans. So this was a vegan secret weapon. It was their best robot.
Sophie, are you out there? Are you
Sophie,
listening?
you there? Yeah, Sophie, she's a vegan.
This is your secret weapon.
Right. He stole it from the vegans. And then ran to Earth with it. It was their secret weapon. And used it against the vegans to defend Earth. So it wasn't his. Fucking Duke Flea's fucking race, they were peaceful. They didn't build this kind of fucking evil shit.
Yeah, they just had to steal the evil shit.
They had to steal it,
from evil people.
From evil people, yeah.
And use it against them.
Right. But it was the same basic... but he was also a badass. He could fucking flip and kick your ass and shit. He was kind of like Superman.
Yeah.
But he didn't have superpowers. He was just badass martial artist. Okay.
Well, yeah, they all were.
Yeah, he's bad.
Well, like I said, having a giant robot helps too.
Yeah.
You can just like step.
Well, you needed a giant robot because the aliens would attack you in these giant robots.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I got some.
So it's like a giant robot arms race. Like one person gets a giant robot, everybody needs.
And I got some of the bad guys up there of the fucking alien giant robots. Fucking
he has you guys can't see it, but there's like a huge.
There's a huge bunch of robots over there.
Huge bunch of robots.
My friend in Japan owns a company that makes that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a French guy, right? But
he's a French guy, but he lives in Japan. Got a Japanese wife.
Yeah.
And he makes all those and sells them. And he's the same age as me, and he grew up with it, and he owns a company that makes all fucking toys for it. But they make it for old guys. They're all made out of metal. That's all metal.
They're very nice, actually.
Yeah.
They're expensive, but they're
very expensive, and they're all made out of metal. And they all fucking articulated and shit. Well, I got up there, I got Jin, and I got Giro, and there's another one he's going to call fucking King Gory's coming, which is like the Japanese Godzilla.
Yeah.
But he was a cybernetic Godzilla.
Godzilla is Japanese. So he's
not Godzilla. I meant King Kong.
Yeah. Okay.
He's a cybernetic King Kong, King Gory, King Gorilla. That's what they were talking about.
I gotcha.
And he was a giant gorilla, but
like a mecha gorilla.
Yeah, he was cybernetic.
Nice.
He was part robot and part King Kong.
Ooh, I like it.
Kids fucking love that shit, man. They knew exactly what they were doing.
That shit. And I'm almost.
They sold so much fucking toys back in the 70s. That's where all these Shogun warriors came from. It came from that era.
Well, you grew up in California, and they had like some Japanese TV stations, so they showed like all those cartoons. Yeah,
it was called.
I hadn't heard of them until I was
UHF
older.
Channel 22. That was the Japanese channel, and I grew up watching it.
Yeah.
But I couldn't understand it. I just.
Yeah, they weren't dubbed or nothing.
No, but they didn't have to be dubbed that shit, man. Those fucking cartoons were kicking my ass. Those damn robots. I was like,
giant robots, I'm in.
Fucking right.
I don't care what they're saying.
And the only thing that got me off that kind of was Star Wars. Star Wars came out.
Yeah.
And Star Wars could compete with that.
Yeah.
But up until Star Wars, nothing could compete with what the Japanese were doing in anime.
They were very ahead of the curve.
Way ahead of time.
Oh yeah.
Now here's the thing I didn't know at the time. We're going on a sidetrack, but we're going.
That's okay. Whatever.
Japanese parents hated that shit.
Well,
they didn't want their kids watching that.
I feel like parents in general hate everything their kids.
It had demons involved in it.
That's right.
The girls all had damn nipples on their uniforms.
Yep.
They fucking were. There was too much fucking sex involved in it, and the cartoons were even worse.
Yeah.
Not the cartoons, the comic books. The comic books were even more racy. They were most like hentai in certain areas. Yeah. Like perverted shit. So
Tentacle porn.
No, not really. It's more like drugs. Doing weird shit with drugs and doing weird shit with demon spirits and stuff. So, I can remember my mom said, those things look demonic. She was buying them for me anyway, but they look like, back in the 70s, they look like demons. Doesn't that look like a demon?
It does, kind of. Hello.
Yeah. He was actually built after like a European knight, but
That's what it never gave me a demonic thing. I always thought of like
a knight.
Like a Middle Ages type of thing. That's what I always kind of like got out of it. Mm-hmm. All right, so like I said, the show's going to be like 6 hours long.
Like 1,000,000 hours long.
1,000,000 hours long. Yeah. That's how long it's going to be. Do you know how long this is going to take me to upload to YouTube? A very long time. Yeah. But, okay. I was, sorry, Baby Cookie's like over there like climbing up on the window.
I'm going to show him Getter real quick.
Oh, okay.
Because we were talking about Getter.
Here we go. But you got to put the camera back where it was.
The camera didn't move.
Okay. I thought you were going to like move the camera now.
This is Getter.
That's Getter Robo.
Yeah. Now you can see what I'm talking about, how demonic. That
He's cool, I think.
Yeah, that was Getter. Yeah. Okay.
Like I said, he's got a ton of those.
Yeah.
All right, now, has he put in front of my Clive Barker book back there?
Yeah, it's all right.
All right.
Show's almost over.
So, well, I hope it is.
Yeah.
If you just kind of keep going off. Okay. So, like I said, before we end this endless show, I have 3 fiction pieces I want to read. All right?
Yeah.
Do you think you can settle down long enough for me to do that?
Yeah.
Okay. I hope you guys love us because you're getting a lot of us this Halloween.
They're going to turn this shit off.
More of us than anyone should ever have to endure.
Right.
I'm just saying. I'm already sick of us, and I'm me. You know what I mean? I'm already sick of me. All right. So this first story, like I said, okay, you getting your little there.
Yeah, he's going to listen.
He's going to listen. Okay. Yeah. So this is a story that was sent to me by Zachary Lee Antle, who I talked to quite a bit. He sent me 2 stories. This was like the shorter one. So this is the one I'm going to read. This one is called The Blessed Few. All right. Are we ready?
Yeah.
Everyone? Okay. So be quiet. Pennsylvania was a contradiction. Philly being the home of the American ideal, while coal country, as it was known to the locals, could easily pass for the kind of backwater one finds in parts of Siberia, Wales, or the African Gold Coast. I should know because I've lived in coal country in Wales for a little while. The clattering elevator arrived at the natural entrance to the mine, the men inside letting out a collective sigh. Most pulled off their hats and gloves to wipe their brows, the sweat mixing with the coal dust to make a fine powdery ooze across the skin. Terrence, stretching and pulling on every tendon until there was just the right amount of pop to satisfy, didn't follow the others. Nah, he went his own way, molting out of his coveralls and flinging him into the bed of his mud-caked F-Series, lamenting the fact that he'd have to clean both of them, eventually. The smokestacks made him sit up and take notice on the road home, their smoke looking more like the ink from an octopus, thick enough to block out the sun. Terrence imagined the area a frozen wasteland, a volcanic winter of man's own making. He adored winter, and found the thought soothing as the cicadas sung their song from the trees. Come to think of it, he'd never seen one of them before. All he'd ever known of them were when Grandpa had told him the singing was the sound they made during fornication. Which it is, we have those around here. Terrence smiled at it, always having preferred vocal women as his partners at night. Women like Gail, or as her papa called her once upon a time, Gil, as it was impossible to get her out of the local pond as a girl, said nor made any kind of sound while on her back, in the dark, with the curtains closed. Fatima couldn't have been more different of a story. She said she'd come from Guadalajara or some such place at the end of the war to find work. What little he remembered of her talk ran something to the tune of maid to laundress to waitress to flamenco club dancer to hooker. No streetwalker, she swore, a high-class lady of the night. Terrence had no way of proving it, even if he had cared to. Finding her the first time in response to an ad for a nanny. Gail had to go to Philly to care for Aunt Margot, her dementia praecox getting more and more out of hand. The pay was $5 an hour. Many responders, Terrence could see himself leaving with the kids and not coming home to find them and the rest of the house missing. Then in walked Fatima, wearing a converted men's suit from the war years, her waterfall of black hair covered by a scarf ever so perfectly bowed under her chin. It was this hair, in fact, along with her almond eyes, high cheeks, and dark complexion that stuck out to him. She reminded him of his first time at 16, with a very beautiful Itawan Indian girl in a wheat field, her the daughter of a local moonshiner who Daddy had gotten friendly with in Prohibition. The children were unusually taken with her, including the mute Samuel, responding well to the faces she'd made to get him laughing. Gail returned home after a week. Margot had taken a toll, she being a couple pounds lighter than before, with circles under her eyes, which also seemed puffy from crying. Terence wanted to ask why, stopping himself when he realized how little energy he had to keep up with her tales. Fatima was dismissed. You could still smell the honey scent of her perfume in the couch fabric for days afterward. This made him begin looking at Gail. At times she was like an intruder. She was a different lady after the miscarriage. All her wit, ambition, and charm left with Max. She hadn't touched Terence or herself in over 3 years. The next time he saw Fatima was at the theater in Lehighton, I guess that is. He and Gail were leaving a screening of Guys and Dolls. Across the street, Fatima was wrapped around the arm of another Mexican in greaser garb. Terence thought she saw him, her waving at him in such a way it made one of her breasts nearly fell out of the loose peasant top she wore. Over the following weeks, the ability not to see her around town was impossible to keep going. Terence even had to stop himself from misidentifying locals as her in public. He even called her one night, hanging up the second the receiver was lifted on her end. He made up his mind while pickaxing at a vein of coal under the hills. Sparks flew out at him. One burned him on the cheek, narrowly missing his eye. An omen, maybe. Daddy lashed him with his belt, and he had said such things out loud. Fatima woke at midnight that night. A nightmare, her mother waving goodbye to her as the train pulled away. Her father placed a hand on her shoulder, leaning over her. He whispered that she hated her. Fatima got up and brushed her teeth, disposed of the scraps of fabric that was once a wrap dress, and cleaned up the broken glass under the living room window. She got back in bed next to Terence. Time was to become a non-entity to the pair as the affair progressed. The talking darker, the compliments more backhanded, the lovemaking meaner. Eventually, Fatima even stopped cleaning up the black soot of his shoe prints on the living room carpet, playing a game of hopscotch with them, imagining herself with Terence. There was then the issue of Gail and her lovely but prying eyes. One wonders what goes in any person's head, the amount of energy it takes to be that paranoid, to make sure all parts of your life remain in check. Terence never questioned none of it, finding they who seek answers to all things to be irksome at best, and a distracting stain on his reality at worst, especially when it comes to his reality. His brain turned to tar as he thought these things over. Watching Gail sleep, for a moment imagining her peaceful expression, was because her body was on the slab. Then the sounds started up. Again, the awful sounds like water boiling and being gargled, mixed with the sounds of messy, wet kissing. They came from the corner this time, the black tentacles slithering and banging against each other from the ceiling like a blind man in a dark room, but all stopped when he looked. They looked back, all going rigid and pointing at him. Terence nodded. The next morning was one of energy for Terence, his complete lack of sleep notwithstanding. He fetched Fatima from the apartment, telling her the tickets to Miami were in order, and then from there on to Havana. He had to make a stop at the mine on the way, though. There were tools he'd left he had to get, mentally sighing when she caught the hook. His prayers were all keeping the elevator from disintegrating out from under him. It clanged, reaching the bottom landing. The air was strangled in fumes and natural gases, mud and dust thick enough through the lighting and a welding tool may as well send the state into orbit. He'd gone down tunnels upon tunnels upon tunnels. For the umpteenth time, had he not known better, he'd have thought he'd eventually open a manhole in the middle of Peking. It was only then that he made it to the pit. He placed the lantern on the old workman's table, producing a cloth from his pocket, wrapped like a baby would be. Unfurling it, he turned his hand over. Gail's heart fell into the advanced darkness of the mouth. 10 Mississippis later, he heard not a peep, not a sound of satisfaction nor displeasure. He got down on his knees, praying to the Almighty below him. He needed good fortune in this endeavor. He and she need not be found, nor the children. The sisters would care for him. A single oily tentacle inched up out of the dark, pointing at him. It grabbed his hand, the pain beyond one's wildest nightmares. The tentacle then slid out of his. Terence looking at his palm, a brand running across it as if cattle prodded. He smiled. His Lord's blessing. I like that story. Very Lovecraftian.
Yeah, with the tentacles and everything.
Yeah.
he would actually like the lighthouse.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of people compare it to that too. It's very Dagon-esque.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But this gave me a very Lovecraftian vibe also. So good job there. That's and the whole mind thing When I lived in Wales for a little while, I actually went down an actual coal mine, which you could go down. It was like a tourist thing now. Mm-hmm. And I'm super into that. Like, I like old coal mines and caves and shit like that. So I was like, yeah, man, I want to go like way down. And so I put on the helmet and I like went that way down into the fucking elevator and shit and went down in the mine, and it was all like close and fucking, it was cool, man. I liked it. I can't remember where it was though. What the fuck was the name of that town? It was just like an old colliery that they didn't, it wasn't open anymore, but it was just like open as a tourist thing, like for people that wanted to go down and like check out what it was like to work down in the mines when everybody had to work down in the mines in Wales. Fucking might have been in Merthyr Tydfil, I think, because that was like a big coal producing area of Wales. So the next story that I have to read was submitted by someone whose pen name is Harry Novak. This story is called A Murder of Souls. A cloud-choked sky brooded over Pontefract Park, that green expanse of grass and bush planted in the ancient market town. The hulk of the racecourse building brooded in the perishing light of dusk, its doors long since locked. In the exact center of the park, a man stood, hands in pockets, thin jacket twitching slightly in the breeze. The fading light showed a strained and exhausted face, crumpled by what could only be recognized as fear. The man slumped to the ground, expensively tailored trousers rubbing on damp grass. "It's not fair," he raged. "This shouldn't be happening, not to someone like me. Me." His long, well-manicured fingers raked at the grass in a futile gesture of self-pity, fear, and narcissistic rage. This man, David Asquith to the world, Davy to his cronies, knew he was trapped. A cool breath caressed his sweaty brow, providing no comfort. He stared towards the stand of trees that formed a near-perfect square around an ancient wrought-iron fence. No other human life walked the park, which Asquith knew was bizarre in itself. He had lived in this town all his life, knew its rhythms, its quirks, and hidden depths. The fact that no runner, dog walker, or squawking group of cider-toting teenagers graced the surface of the park was wrong. No, they would not be allowed here. They wouldn't allow it. Davy Asquith was only just beginning to suspect who they were, the knowledge clawing at his mind like a jagged, dirty fingernail. For he was a big man, was he not? A player, sharp and tooled up for any of the jobs he'd had to do. Who else could have stomped out the Leeds firms like him, bloodied the Chapeltown gangs into a state of whimpering surrender? This small mining town boy, raised in a tiny flat in the horse fair. Oh, and the lasses, they'd thrown themselves at him. His parties became the stuff of underworld legend, where women would fulfill every depraved whim. He had had women on tap, an inexhaustible supply, won over by dirty cash and promises of a sparkling life. A sound, barely perceptible, yanked him out of his semi-trance. So it had started, as he had known it would. Why had he even thought to run to the park? Was it perhaps his memories of a place where he'd felt safe as a child? An oasis in the town, far removed from the alcoholic violence in the box that passed for his home. A solitary car flicked up the A639, its lights penetrating the lengthening shadows. Darkness fell upon him like an old and damp coat, the outside lights of the sports center seeming like the LEDs of some offshore oil rig. He began to move, automaton-like, towards the stand of trees around 100 yards away from him. The breeze gathered strength, urging him on like a gentle yet firm hand. Yes, it had started. Had he really thought he could do as he pleased forever? The arrogance of his condition had painfully crashed upon him, dragging him toward his fate. What had the family of the woman said in their note to him? "You will see." Just 3 words, signed with names he had previously thought of no consequence. More sounds intruded upon the night air, the night by now fully dead, slipping into its temporary grave beyond the horizon. A whispering crescendo swirled around him like a swarm of wasps, snatches of conversations long forgotten, deadly orders given and executed. He had truly thought he could not be crossed, not even by those bastards in London with their guns and flashy suits. The whispering, intense now, seemed to assail him from all sides. Twisting, icy terror began to gnaw at his guts. Sweat sprang from every pore. Reaching the fence, the railings looking like an iron giant's rusted teeth, he slumped forward, all strength seeping from his formerly powerful body. The shadows around him began to merge and coalesce, taking on barely distinguishable forms. Fear reached a gnarled hand into his heart, twisting and yanking. He saw the forms now for what they were, a mass of torturous, wraith-like energy created by the evil of his actions, bleeding into the cracks in the world, waiting for the right key to return them. A key had been provided, one casual act of cruelty providing the impetus. Christ, I didn't mean to. I just couldn't stop. I made it quick, he howled, futile and desperate, knowing it made no difference. Inky blackness swirled around him, a kaleidoscope of shadow, shapes forming and collapsing just as quickly. His terrified mind began to make some sort of cold sense of his surroundings, the realization of what these figures represented thudding into his mind like a meteor crashing to Earth. One central figure swirled into place, its face unclear, yet Asquith knew it didn't need to be to make itself known. He knew what it had been as surely as he knew himself. The whispering petered out, melting away into the cool air. The figure raised a blurry hand, pointing directly at his weeping eyes. Every choice, every act of evil and venality hardened into a diamond point in his mind, threatening to burst its way out of his skull. One word, spoken as one by the gathered wraiths, whispered its way across the darkness. See. So David Asquith saw everything that had been intended for him to see. It was this seeing that halted his life, reducing his brain to a tepid soup by an act of violent psychic liquefaction. As blood seeped from every of his orifices and his body spasmed, David Asquith saw with every fiber of his being. After his heart ruptured into 4 in his chest, ventricles shredded and limp, the forms surrounding him began to dissipate, more earthly shadows filling their wake. As his body began to cool in the night air, the blood and vomit congealing to a waxy shine, peace entered Pontefract Park, a sense of equilibrium pervading its green slopes, touching the man-made lake and silent playgrounds. A debt had been paid in this ancient town. Forces powerful and ancient had collected to right the scales, until such time as those scales were tipped again. His body was not discovered for 12 hours. That's another good one.
Yeah.
That is, you know what I mean? That would make a really good, like a creep show segment. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because it's like a bad guy like getting his comeuppance, like from the afterlife. Yeah, you know what I mean? Cool. Yeah, I like that a lot. That was a very good story. All right, so our last story is by Dana Darko. I like that name. Like Donnie Darko, which is also on Tubi. Incidentally, that just reminded me. This is called The White Wall. And there's also some original artwork to go with this. So if you're watching the video version, then I will put her artwork that she did for this particular story also. Because she has a blog. It is silent. I am floating, drifting in the darkness, the wind shifting in light sheets across my face. I feel the steady vibrations of tires rumbling with flight over the pavement below. With my eyes still closed, my body races along a rapid space, and then finally there's the impression of people talking in the distance. I can also hear music in the air. A horizontal slit opens to the reality of my dream. As my eyes grow wider, it then becomes clear I am in a car with friends. I do not know who they are. As in dreams, I barely see them. They could be friends of the present or of the future. No one I would know now. Their presence seems to be peripheral in relation to the road before us. Perhaps the persons just represent random spirits experiencing the same warning with me, or maybe they serve no purpose at all. Maybe I might as well be riding by myself with a phantom driver at the wheel. I only know it feels like my destiny is to be here on this road somewhere in the middle of this night. The headlights show the motion of the slithering trail of glowing white lines ahead of us. As the solid and jagged snakes wiggle in and out of sight, I notice a white wall, faithfully following parallel to the path closely to the left of us. Larger than the tracks of the road, it begins to remind me of a giant white worm. I am momentarily distracted from the rapid movement of the car. My friends are laughing. I focus briefly on their forms. The traffic lights ahead of us change like bright red and green planets taking turns in the black void of space. Something is about to happen. A glowing ball of yellow emerges suddenly from an unseen space and drops past the lights and down to Earth, where it appears to land somewhere in front of us. There is no discussion. We all understand that each of us wants to find it. The green planet appears and the driver takes his foot off the brake, and with the next big step we move closer to that which we seek. We cruise around in what seems like an abandoned city. There is no sign of anyone, and the lights illuminating the buildings are dim and an electric gray. There is no sign of the orb, only desolation. Then suddenly we appear on that road again beside the wall. I spot something there beside it, just before the wall disappears into the perspective of night. Now it seems as if nothing surrounds us, just the white wall and the thing beside it. The driver stops. Sitting in the middle, with no concern that any other human will come up behind us, we peer at it. From here, there is no telling what it is. The car shifts so that the headlights can get a better look. Surrounded by a circle of light, we can now tell it is a little girl. She is naked and motionless, and she is facing the wall. Now I am next to her, the light circling us both. She is still turned towards the wall so that her face remains unseen. Still motionless, I sense it is not just her, but the world that has gone quiet. We are frozen in this moment. There is no sound except the soft idling of the car somewhere behind us. Time passes, on and on. Then she slowly bends forward, her arm outstretched and her finger pointing to the ground. My eyes only focus on her finger now, and follow it till it touches the ground. With contact, there is a sudden roar, and fire shoots out from the touch. Moving out from one concentric circle, with the girl in the middle, the surrounding trees, the surrounding city, the surrounding everything is consumed, and then it is black and quiet again. Creepy. That is also a very good... Man, we got some really good submissions this year. God damn.
A lot of talent out there.
There really is.
Yeah.
You guys are awesome.
You need to send that to someplace and then make a screenplay out of it.
That's what I mean. A lot of these I think will make like good movies.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so...
Yeah, is this the end of the show?
I think so. It's like, wait a minute. How many, like... Oh, crap. Okay, so we are... What are we... I think we are at 5.5 hours? 6
I have no
hours?
idea.
Something like
You're
that.
the one that's sober enough to keep track of all this.
Just barely.
Yeah.
Although, yeah, I haven't drunk as much as you have.
Yeah.
Because I had to read and I didn't want to slur over everybody's stories.
If we don't have anything else to do, we should wrap this up now because the fucking
because
show's
otherwise it's
long.
just going to go on forever.
Right,
Yeah. So, okay. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed this ridiculously long Halloween show. Like I said, apologies. I did not really expect it to go on this long, but you guys seem to like that.
Enjoy your Halloween.
And this is, this is really for the fans anyway. We're just trying to show you guys how much we appreciate you, and we just went way overboard with it. But hopefully you guys enjoyed our drunken ramblings over 2 successive nights, and please have a fantastic and safe Halloween.
We'll see you next week.
And we will see you next week, just like always.
Yep.
Remember, we love you guys, and we will see you on the next show. Bye, and happy Halloween.